So the plan is we have every gun in Pavlov, and we're gonna make a tier list. I have a few hours in Pavlov, 1,705 at the time we're doing this. Do you know how many
Okay.
you have?
I just passed 400, so
Yeah. So you're a bit newer to Pavlov and the League, but you've been doing like the deep dive on stats and stuff.
and just from watching, like, older videos, I know how some of the guns used to work, like, simple example, like, the AWP used to be a one-hit kill, and obviously, with the presence of the 50 cal, now it's not, but stuff like that.
Yeah, and P90 used to be my favorite gun in the game, and now it's total garbage.
Yeah.
So where do you want to start?
Um, I guess we do wanna just go in order of the pictures that we got there, or
Well, we could do that. Mixed in here are also like the beta guns, and that
Mhm.
stuff's like a work in progress. So we could just like guess where we think it's gonna end up in the meta, or where we'd like it to
Yeah.
end up in the meta.
Mhm. Now, the good thing is, at least with a couple of the beta guns, I have some stats, so I can kinda predict what they're most gonna perform like, and then, obviously, with 2 of them, I don't really have much of anything for them, but, again, those are just gonna be like a speculation sorta deal.
Yeah, so maybe we'll just start off with like the pistols and go
Okay.
through. We have both the like World War II update guns and the like modern guns all mixed together, so we'll rank them all.
Cool. Alright. I guess we'll start with the 1911
Yeah,
again.
classic starting pistol. I'm gonna give this. My initial thought is a B.
Is it B tier? What makes you say that?
So it's a two-shot headshot. You get
Mhm.
it for free on pistol round. I like to go Armor 1911 Flash, or if I'm memeing, Armor 1911 Suppressor.
Mhm.
And a lot of people hate on it, but the amount of people that run around with Glocks and just cannot kill you without a headshot is very high. It's like a ridiculous amount of rounds to body if you have armor on pistol round.
Yeah. So kinda like further in depth of that. So the 1911 has the best kill reward of all the pistols at $800. So you're not spending any money on a gun, and if you get a kill with it, you get $800. That's more on second pistol round because first pistol round you don't get any kill money. But and then like you said, it's the two hit headshot, and just I mean, even against without armor, or if you're going up against somebody without armor, it's a four-hit kill to the chest, and then against armor, it's seven hits because I think it takes off armor in four because
Yeah,
it's
if you
25.
have two 1911 armor players on pistol round go up against each other, it's just gonna be shooting for like the next 12 seconds. It
Yeah,
takes
for
so long.
yeah. But I mean, I think the 1911 really rewards people who can get headshots with pistols. And if you like, I'm like always like debating like whether armor is like a worthy purchase on pistol round because I mean with a Glock going up against it, it takes like 8 hits or 9 hits or something like that. So if you can't get that immediate headshot with a Glock, trying to shoot somebody with armor is kind of annoying, especially if you're going up against a weapon that's a 4-hit kill. So I mean, I think I can get behind that. The thing is, I mean, the 1911 is really only useful on pistol round unless you magically get 2 headshots on, like, a full save round, but,
Yeah,
I mean
on a save round, if you're not buying a Revo, if you're just going knife 1911 no armor like on a full save, you're really just hanging out in a corner trying to get a knife kill. You're not really ever going to get in a situation where you're going to choose the 1911 over a knife in that full save and actually like be as successful.
yeah, and the thing that also holds it back too is, like, just kinda like the Glock, it has 10% armor pen, so, like, that first shot's gonna do all of 2 damage, so you have to bank on hitting your entire magazine against somebody, and, I think most people would be able to react to, after 2 or 3 shots and just turn on you, so, I mean,
But if you
just
do get the dink, like one shot headshot, even if you die, it does do a like opens up your teammates for the possibility of getting that trade out a
Mhm.
lot more.
Yeah, because the thing too is if you headshot somebody with a 1911, so the helmet pen is 50, so if they have 100% health, it'll do 50 damage. So that makes it so that they're one hit to a revo.
Yeah. So
So
there are lots of situations that can come up where like one person on your team might have to full save, but another person that got like a knife kill or something on pistol round can buy a revo and still have enough money for the
mhm.
save. So if you get a headshot with a 1911, then your teammate with a revo has the one shot capability.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So I mean, I think it's definitely like a the beer B tier weapon. Uh, just based off kind of like all that. I mean, it's not like the most amazing thing, but it doesn't completely suck either, especially for the role that it's used in primarily.
Yeah.
So then we have the 5.7.
Yeah, we'll go to the 5.7. Now, this guy is kind of funky. It has a large capacity. It has armor penetration. Like, on pistol round, when are you going to buy this? Like, if you think the entire other team is going armor 1911, why not just buy a Revo? Like,
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
situation is this good?
So the thing that so a couple things really hold back this gun. First, besides the Desert Eagle, it has the slowest fire cap. It's set to 500 rounds a minute as opposed to 600 rounds a minute. Which I mean, like, when are you ever really going to shoot that fast? But I mean, against unarmored opponents, like, why wouldn't you use a Glock? Why wouldn't you use like you can use like a Beretta or a Tech 9 or something, you know? So like against unarmored opponents, it's still a 5-hit kill, which is the same as a Glock. So,
I
you
would
know, there's
say if you're a person that hasn't learned how to control the Glock auto, if you like
mhm,
you buy a Glock, you switch it to semi and that's how you shoot it, the sights are probably better on the 5.7 in terms of just a semi auto only. If so, if for whatever reason you're going for semi auto only and you don't want a deagle or something, the
mhm.
5.7 would fill that gap. But learning the Glock, that's kind of like where the meta is right now, and
Oh, for
putting the
sure.
time into that.
Mhm.
I'm gonna say C or D for five
Yeah.
seven.
So a couple other things to hold it back. It has the lowest kill reward of all the pistols at only $300 per kill. And then, I mean, the good thing is that against armor, it is a 5-hit kill. But I mean, on most save rounds, you're probably going to, at least meta wise, you're going to learn the Revo, and that's a 2-hit kill. And I mean, I was thinking like, oh, you can have like a couple buddies and like they can like crossfire and tag people and kill them fast, which I mean, you could do it more accurately, I guess, but even then, like, the Revo is still, like, a much better, like, save round weapon versus the 5.7. So, I mean, the benefits of it are, yeah, that 100% armor penetration, so it'll always be a 5-hit kill unless you're shooting below the knee, and then it also is a 2-hit headshot against helmets, and the helmet pen of it is actually 75%, so you're dropping somebody to 25 health um after shooting him in the head once. So, I mean, if you do a headshot and then 2 body shots, they're dead. So, I mean,
The recoil is also kind of all over the place. Like if you spam it, not all of the recoil's vertical. There's almost like some like down coil. Sometimes it like pushes the gun down. It's funky.
it's kinda weird. I will say though, it does have the best bullet velocity of all the pistols, so, I mean, like, I guess maybe shots might be a little bit easier to hit with it, just like, as you lower the bullet velocity, the shots are gonna be a little bit harder to hit at range. I mean, like, going back to the 1911 for a sec, like, it's got really slow bullet velocity, so, I mean, I guess that's the one thing that maybe redeems the 5.7 a little bit, but I mean, you don't really see it used that much just based on what else is available that does its job better. Like, you would think that it's meant to be like a good save round pistol, and if it had more of a kill reward, if it could shoot maybe a little bit faster, or maybe if it did 25 damage instead of 20 and had that 100% armor penetration, then I would consider buying it on a save round over a Revo and like just trying to go for the quick like 4 tap. But even then, like, I think it just kind of gets outclassed. So I would say almost like D tier
Yeah,
ish.
that's where my mind is as well. I'm gonna give it a solid D.
Cool beans.
So next, going in order of pistols, we have the Tech 9.
Tech 9. Okay.
So this one, I don't know. It's a lot more popular than I think I understand why it should be. It
Mhm.
has a very large capacity. The recoil is very manageable. You can buy it in a couple flashes, but do the recoil benefits and the magazine benefits outweigh just buying a 1911 in armor or 1911 in a whole bunch of flashes?
So the thing with the Tech 9 is, obviously, at least on pistol rounds, you won't be able to buy Tech 9 armor. So I mean, that's where the benefit of the 1911 comes in. But I feel like the Tech 9 almost counters that because it has 50% armor pen. So instead of doing, and it does 25 damage. So I mean, it'll kill an unarmored opponent in the same amount of time that a 1911 would. Um, and it'll do even the same helmet penetration. But the thing about the Tech 9 is that it takes 2 hits to knock a helmet off. So it's a 3-hit headshot against helmeted opponents, whereas the 1911 is only two. Um, the other things that like it does well is that it has the fastest fire cap of 666 rounds. So like if you're like point blank, you just spam the trigger.
You also have the magazine to actually spam it. Like the
Yeah.
1911, you can spam it, but you're out in like a second.
Yeah.
Tech 9, you can spam, and you got a few seconds that you can just shoot.
Mhm. I think the other thing that people like about this too is because you hold it with 2 hands, but not like 2 hands close together like a pistol, you kind of hold it more like a rifle. And so they can kind of treat it like a single fire AK in a way where they're just going for that one tap against like an unhelmeted opponent or something. So, I mean, the thing is like the kill reward is 500 as opposed to 600. So you just lose only a little bit. So, I mean, like
The sights are
it's
garbage. I don't like the
yeah.
sights.
Oh, yeah. No. Those sites are just it's just they're like yeah, they're simple, but it's just like based on like how the weapon acts and everything, and it's just like it feels really weird to line them up. I don't know what gives about them, but I mean, I'd say if anything, the Tech 9 is like a C tier weapon. Like you don't really see it used much. There are a couple like one-off purposes that it does hold, and there's a couple things that it does do best. And I mean its bullet velocity is in line with the Glock and Beretta since they share the same.
I was going to give it a bit more credit. I think that it fills the role of like it's a comparable to the 1911 in that if you buy the 1911, you're pretty much only going for headshots. If you buy the Tech 9, you're kind of using the same strategies as the person that buys the 1911 armor, but you have more utility and you can go for like body shots and you like open up that door where you assume that most people don't buy armor, which most people don't.
Mhm. And that's the thing too, like it kills in 4 hits to an unarmored opponent. So like again, it does the same thing that the 1911 does with 3 times the ammo capacity. So, you know, you could be like holding an angle or something or like trying to catch people cross and like it's definitely better at dealing with multiple enemies than a 1911 would be.
That's true. That's huge. You run across pistol round. If you got like 2 or 3 people, you're fucked with the 1911 unless you're like
Mhm.
John Wick hitting headshots. With
Yeah.
the Tech 9, you have the capacity and you have the spammability with the fire that you could probably, I mean, obviously depending on skill, but you have the capability of handling more people
Yeah.
quickly.
Mhm. Yeah, like if it did like 20 damage, then yeah, I'd probably give it like a lower tier, but it does that 25 damage. And then it also has that armor penetration. So like if somebody has a 1911 and armor, it can deal with that a little bit better or on the same level as a Glock would because it's 25 armor damage, so it takes 4 hits to take the armor off, but then at that point like they're pretty low health anyways, and if you're like grouping up on pistol round, that armor will kind of get stripped away depending on, if everybody's hitting their shots and all that. But I mean, I think it's pistol round wise, it's definitely better at dealing with people that go the armor 1911 route, and it's better at dealing with multiple enemies. So I'd say maybe C or B tier. It's maybe something I would try, but I mean, I just kind of like the Glock too much. So
Yeah, I'm between B and C as well. I'm gonna say C though because I main the 1911 for the most part,
Mhm.
so
Yeah,
I might be a bit biased.
yeah, for sure. I I'd be interested to see what people decide to use the Tech 9 and see how it like works out at like a higher level. You know what I mean?
Yeah. All right. To the Deagle next.
To the Deagle. So the only time I would ever really use a Deagle is if I'm like on super high ping and can't reload a revolver fast.
I
That's about it.
100% agree. Reloading a revolver on a high ping is really, really bad
Yeah.
experience. There's
Mhm.
another situation. High ping, totally agree with you. If I'm playing on like APAC for whatever reason, I'm never buying a revolver. It's always going to be a Deagle instead. But
Mhm.
a situation where you're playing one of like a community server where there's tons of people, you don't
Yeah.
necessarily want to buy a Revo because you only got like 5 shots and the reload's kind of a pain. With the Deagle, you can spam it a lot more and do lots of more shots, and also the sights are better. I think the
Yeah.
Revo, it takes some getting used to, and for long range shots the Deagle just has really nice iron sights.
Yeah.
And so if you see like 10 people coming over the hill in some like ground war game or something,
Mhm.
I would definitely take the Deagle over a Revo.
I mean, and if you want to be that person too, you can put a red dot on it and or a
Yeah,
holographic.
yeah,
So, I mean,
ACOG suppressor.
the
But
meme strat, but
yeah, I think it's very, very situational. Uh, Not a whole lot of use.
I would love to either see its price decreased or the Revo's price increased so that you know, it would have more of a use on save rounds potentially. It's just like there's no reason except for, high ping or like if you're dealing with a lot of people to buy a Desert Eagle over a Revo. Like it does 40 damage no matter what, unless you're hitting below the knees. So it's a 3-hit kill, whereas the Revo's a 2-hit kill. And then, I mean, also the fire cap is lower. Like the Revo has a fire cap of 600 rounds a minute, and then the Deagles is 400, which most trigger fingers can usually get up to 400. So I mean, I it's just I see that I'm just like I feel like they don't want us to use the Desert Eagle. I don't know.
I
It's
I would say, although at the same time, it's basically a G3. It can take the attachments. It's like
Mhm.
a 3 shot kill, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
And like damage wise and all like that, it's basically a G3 for $800, which makes the G3. We'll get to the G3, but
Yeah. Yeah, so like it's a pocket G3 whereas the Reva's like a pocket like scout in a way, you know? So
yeah.
um but I definitely would love to see the Desert Eagle's price like maybe messed around with or the Revo's price messed around with.
It's an interesting idea. If you bump up the Revo above 900, say it's like 1,000, then
Mhm.
it removes it from pistol round and makes it an exclusive like save gun or
Yeah.
something like that. And then you might see a resurgence of the Deagle. But for now, I'm saying D tier. What do you
D
say?
tier. I I'd say I would probably say D tier. I mean, the other saving grace too is that it has that one hit against helmet capability. So,
That's true.
uh, yeah. So I mean, I hate putting it all the way down there, but I mean, I think in the context of this game, it definitely would be there. If this was like CS, it'd be like an A tier and S tier weapon. But for now, it'll be there. Although I would love to see things change so that the Desert Eagle can get a little bit more love. Um,
Yeah.
cool. Okay, so then what do we got next?
Let's do the modern pistols, then we'll go through and do
Then yeah,
like the World War.
so then
So,
the next one I see is the Beretta.
yeah, we'll
That's
get to
that's
the
F.
Beretta.
That's the F tier. No
Straight
question about
F tier. I'm
that.
100% on
Yeah,
board. This is
yeah.
hands down the worst gun in the game.
There is zero reasons you should buy this. This is essentially a semi-auto Glock that has less capacity, and yeah, there's literally no reason to buy this. Like the 1911's a better semi-auto pistol, the Tech 9's a better semi-auto pistol, and like they're both better against helmets and armor. This thing takes 2 hits to get the helmet off, I think, and it's helmet pen of 50. Um, yeah, there's just no reason to buy the Beretta. Like
It
unless
is
you're going for the meme dual wield strap, but even like I guess dual wielding it with is okay, but I mean
Yeah, if you're gonna meme, like, buy two suppressed Berettas and just akimbo it and beat up pub lobbies, but it's so bad.
There's no reason to buy the Beretta at all.
It would be interesting to see it take over as the default pistol and then have the 1911 on the buy wheel in its place super cheap, like 200 or whatever the Beretta is.
Either that or like, you make it the CT side starting pistol and then you make the 1911 like the T side starting pistol or something. I don't know. Like,
That's true. Sighted weapons, Dave, the developer, has talked about. That's kind of where he wants it to go in the future. Is have CT kind of like Counter Strike has, like, the T's have the AK and CTs have the AR.
M4. Mhm.
Yeah. Eventually, once we get enough guns in the game,
Yeah.
side the weapons and make that.
Yeah.
I think that'll be cool. It'll
Mhm.
add a unique gameplay
Yeah.
element that we don't see now.
For now, yeah, this is probably like I hate to say it, but somebody's got to take it. It's the worst gun in the game.
I I completely agree.
And then on the other hand, we get to the next pistol, which is the Revo.
So I think this is going to be a quick one as well. I'm just going to go ahead and drag this up here to the S tier.
S tier. Yeah, yeah. I mean,
It's a 2-shot kill, no matter if they buy armor, 1-shot headshot, 5 shots. The reload takes some getting used to, but if you look at a player like Meta, they can get it down in like under a second.
mhm.
It's brutal.
Yeah. So you get almost the same reloading speed as any of the magazine-fed pistols, like Desert Eagle, and you have a two-hit kill weapon from any range, mind you. Not even just like close range, because there's not damage fall off as of right now. But you have a two-hit kill weapon at any range. Like this thing is like having come from Counter Strike and Valorant, you get a sense of comfortable feeling on when the other team is saving, but even on save rounds, like this thing is devastating to go up against if the person is a good shot.
The entire other team buys Revos. So if you get tagged once, you're a one shot for the entire team for the rest of that round.
Mhm. Oh my god, I wish I was better with the Revo. I always complain about it just because I suck.
There is a skill ceiling. Like the sight takes some getting used to, and
Mhm.
reloading takes some getting used to. It's not as fast as the Deagle or reloading a 1911 or anything like that, but it is definitely something you can practice and speed up. It's not like a 5-second reload. You can get it down to like a 1 or 2 second reload.
And then also like besides the 5.7, the Desert Eagle and the Revo are tied for having the best bullet velocity. So like even at range, like you don't have to lead your shot as much either. You just put it like ever so slightly like in front of where they're going, and it'll probably hit. The only thing is it's annoying when you hit a shot below the knee because then the Revo becomes a 3-hit kill because as a damage reduction. So it doesn't do
That's
that
true.
50 damage. That's the only thing where that can get annoying about it. But other than that, like, and then the other thing too is playing on high ping servers, like we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
You'll have to reload the revolver really slow.
Or if you're like an EU player playing against an NA team, or if you're like live out in the boondocks or something, ping plays a massive role in reloading the Revo.
Yeah, for real. But I mean, other than that, it's definitely meta, not only just for pistol round, but also for like save rounds and
Yeah, you go up, you have one team with full armor rifles util, the other team saves with the Revo. It's not that sided on the like against the Revo team. They have, I'm not going to say 50-50, but they have a solid chance.
Mhm. And I mean the other thing too is when you compare CS and Valorant save rounds to Pavlov save rounds, the other big thing that you don't think about as much is that when you don't buy armor in CS or Valorant, you get aim punched, and that's not a thing in Pavlov. So even if you're getting shot at, you can still most likely land an accurate shot or two on somebody. So that makes it even scarier to go up against because you can just commit to the fight. Whereas if you're just completely saving in other games, uh
if you really want to break the game, this is banned in League, by the way, but if you have a physical, like, VR stock, you can akimbo revolvers, line up the sights in your stock, and then you just pull the triggers at the same time as you're aiming, and it's
Yeah.
a $1,600 50.
Yeah.
It's brutal. Like, there were some League guys that would do that in pubs, and it just ruins it for everyone.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy. I mean, I remember when the R8 revolver broke CS because it was literally a one hit kill to the stomach, even against armor. So it was like an $800 op. It was disgusting. But even then, like the Revo, like we said, it's a scout. I mean, I would love to maybe see this go up to like 1,000 or something, so that you don't have to worry about it on pistol round, or that even you have to really debate whether you want to take the risk and buy a Revo, because I mean it wouldn't change the kill reward or anything, because you'd have to get you'd still have to get 2 kills to justify buying it. But even then, like
Yeah, I
uh,
think that you could balance it with the price. Another balancing route could be the recoil reset duration. Like, when you shoot it, the gun goes up, and then there's an amount of time that passes before it, like, drops back down to where you're aiming. Right now,
mhm,
that's fairly quick, but if
mhm.
they uh, increased the time at which it takes for it to come back down, you couldn't get those 2 shots to kill somebody off as fast, and that might be another method to balance it out.
And then also, Dave was thinking about putting damage fall off, like reduction in damage at range, and that could be another way, because I mean,
He adds that, we're gonna have to redo the tier list. That'll change a whole
oh my
bunch of shit.
for real, for real. But I think for now, I think the Revo sits at S tier for sure. Like it's just such a game changer with being 50 damage. And
Yeah.
I could talk about this gun all day and how good it is. And speaking of guns that are good, we move to the last modern pistol, which is the Glock.
Yeah. So the Glock is the current meta on pistol round. Glock and util. It is basically automatic. You can learn the timing. It's technically 3 round burst, but if you pull your trigger at the right pace, you can get it full auto basically. It is quite something.
Yeah. So basically, uh, by the time the burst is done finishing, whatever burst delay is in place will be done. So effectively, once you get this full auto, it it's set to shoot at 1,200 rounds a minute, like inside the burst. But technically, this is a full auto pistol that shoots at the same speed as a P90. So um, against unarmored people, if you land all 5 of your body shots, it kills in a quarter of a second, and even against armor, it kills in 400 milliseconds, which is actually in line with some of, like, the assault rifles, which is really
Yeah,
interesting.
the recoil is a lot more than it used to be. I remember in Pavlov when it was still meta, but the recoil was negligible, basically. You can go back and watch some of my old videos of everybody using the Glock, and it's just like an MP5. What the MP5 is now with recoil, there's just like nothing, and you could just spam the shit out of it. But even still, like, Chillstep has a good YouTube video on like how to control it and stuff, and you can like pull your arms down, and it is definitely something that most people in the league or like high level Pavlov play, people know how to control the recoil and they can full auto it accurately.
This is literally the weapon that makes me, like, that always gets me to not buy armor on pistol round. Like, I'm just like, what's it worth? Because, if even if they're aiming at their, like, the chest or whatever, like the off chance that one bullet just magically goes up on that burst and hits you in the face, and it's just like, well, I wasted $650 on something that I could have bought like an extra flash or something else. So I mean, Glock and 2 flashes, like, I mean, that's the way to go, because you got 2 pieces of utility per teammate, and so you could just flash the crap out of a sight. And then the Glock, again, it's the fastest killing pistol, like, um,
Unless you think if you're going up against a team that can't hit headshots, which I like to bet on. I like the 1911 because it's so fun. You're like running down a hallway and you get shot from behind a little bit, and they have a Glock and they can't hit your head. You could just turn around and pop them in the head,
Mhm.
and it must be so frustrating to be on the receiving end of that.
Oh,
If you get the
absolutely.
drop on someone and they just have armor on pissed around and you're not expecting it, and
But yeah, like up close, like this thing just insta deletes people, even if you're
absolutely.
remotely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
up close you don't
So
even have to compensate the recoil. It's just
yeah.
I'm gonna say A tier.
18, yeah. Because I mean, like, other than pistol round, I mean, even though it can kill fast, like you don't really see it used outside of pistol round, like because of the revolver. Um, but yeah, the Glock is definitely really strong. It would be interesting if they put like a higher burst delay on it so that the burst doesn't spam. But then in a way, I guess that would make the bursting at longer ranges more accurate because you're actually pacing your shots. But either way, I mean,
Yeah.
it's plus it has 20 run rounds in the mag, so or 21 plus one. So it's got the second highest bullet capacity of any of the pistols. So you essentially get 7 bursts out of it, which is enough to kill like 3 or 4 people in one mag. If granted you hit all your shots, um, and then the sights are really easy to use, and
Yeah,
even on semi-auto, like it does decent at range.
that's
So I
true.
mean,
You just flick it over to semi and you have a viable mid range to even long range. It has nothing like the 1911 has awful pistol like bullet drop off.
yeah.
The Glock and all the others, they're still viable mid. Some of them long range.
Yeah. So, like for reference, so the Glock and like the other 9 mil pistols, they have a bullet velocity of 1,246 feet per second. The 1911 is less than half of that at 590. So you can literally see the tracer just
Yeah,
slowly. It's basically an airsoft gun.
there are
It's funny.
airsoft guns that shoot faster. It
Yeah,
is ridiculous.
yeah. But I think that's all the modern pistols, at least I
Should we
think,
stick
right?
with the modern theme and then go back to World War II?
We can
I
do
kind of
whatever
like
on.
that idea.
Okay. Yeah, because we could talk about meta and stuff, and then World War II is like an entirely different meta. So then we go to
Let's do
uh
shotguns. Shotguns are fun to talk about.
okay. So
Let's start
what's the
with the sawed off. I want to talk about the sawed off.
okay, go for it.
So at $1,000, you can buy one sawed off. At $2,000, you can buy two sawed off and akimbo them around corners. And that they nerfed it quite a bit. Before it was game breaking. Now it's just still a viable option. It is so deadly around close quarters. If you have four of them, like two on your hips and two in your hands, you can go around a corner to like a full squad of people and have a viable chance of taking down like three of them.
This is gonna be the most casual thing I say today, by the way, but I'm just remembering like when I started off this game, like most people, I played the good old TTT, and there was one time where I did that, or no, I just dual wielded, and I came up on a group of 4 people, and I got right up close to them, and I just pop, 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 kill 4 people. Like so, the sawed off is the most damaging shotgun because it does 20 damage per pellet. It shoots 10 pellets, so it can do a maximum of 200 damage. And so if you land most of your pellets, I think even against, I mean, the armor penetration is 10%. So uh, it's weird trying to do damage values for shotguns just because of, pellets versus bullets and trying to calculate all that. But I mean, this thing can be a real surprise on a save round as well if you just want to hold like a close corner and you don't feel confident in like your knifing abilities. Plus, it gives a $600 kill reward, so it's the same thing
Yeah.
as
Or if you're
using.
playing a really small map and you won't necessarily have the long angles that you would want to revo for on a save, you could buy a sawed off and have your knife in the other hand
Yeah,
and just hold a corner.
yeah, like a map that this would work on is like if you played apps on Inferno or whatever, that's all super close quarters. So if you manage to just like hide in a corner or something, or like watch the stairwell, you can just devastate somebody with it. It's definitely something that is interesting to see, like especially on save rounds. It is a bit more of an investment, just being $1,000 versus $800, and you don't get any range at all with it because the spread is so wide at even like close range, and it's got literally the slowest bullet velocity at 328 feet per second. So like you could like go shoot it in like the firing range or whatever, and you just see the pellets just drop and go really slow.
Yeah, it is
But
brutal if you like come into an area on a map that's even like medium range and all you have is a sawed off. Like you can't do anything. It
yeah.
is it is exclusively a close range gun, which I think helps balance it, but I still think it's valid very close.
And then the other balancing point is that it only has 2 rounds before you have to reload. So
That's true.
kind of like the Revo, it's not the best thing to use on like a high ping server, but I mean, it's you can really just cheese somebody up close with it, especially if you're playing the angle right and they don't like check it or whatever. But um
So where are you putting it?
where would I put it? Probably like B or C tier. It's not something you see often. It's definitely like a one and done strat, but it's devastating the way it works.
I'm gonna
I
say
mean
B. I like
B.
it at B over C. There are
Mhm.
some obvious downsides with the capacity, range, reloading, but the upsides are, especially if you akimbo them at close range, you just melt people.
Yeah, for real. But yeah, I mean, I think besides point blank or close range, there's not really much else use for it. So, I mean,
I
I'm
completely agree.
I'm fine with B tier, I think. Um, so then to the next shotgun, what
Oh,
do we
there's
got?
this the Sega, the drum one.
Oh boy.
This is an expensive shotgun.
So it is $4,200. It only gives a kill reward of $100. It does 15 damage per pellet, and it only shoots 6 pellets. That means it will do a maximum of 75 damage, like if you land all the pellets. Um, it's full auto. It shoots 400 rounds a minute. Like that's where the full auto is set to. It's got the best capacity, having 20 shells, and it actually has like a recoil pattern that's similar to rifles, but you're not using it at rifle range. So I mean, I don't really see this like there's not really much viability to this except for surprising somebody, but this is it. This is like at like high level, that's way too much of an investment.
I agree at high level, this is way too expensive to be worth anything. But there is a situation that I think this is extremely viable. And that is if you go into a lobby of new players that don't buy armor, like I have a YouTube video up that I get like 40 kills in S&D or something crazy, mostly with the Sega, because nobody buys armor and you can just get headshots for days with this and just spam the crap out of them. And so just wrecking pub lobbies is great with it.
Mm. That's the other thing too, is with all the shotguns, there's no point where they just stop doing damage like other FPSs. So I don't know whether it's 1 pellet or 2 pellets, but if a pellet hits the head, you can just magically get a headshot from such a far range, and you don't even have to remotely like try to aim for their head. If you aim for like their neck, sometimes you might, or even if you're like around their head, sometimes you might just have that one lucky pellet, and against somebody that's unarmored, like that can still kill and just be really devastating. But I mean, in terms of like competitive play, like there's no reason you would ever buy this, and so
Yeah.
I think it's probably D or maybe F.
I'm going to say D, not F, because it is fun to bully pubs with it. And it's it's an interesting gun. It like reloads. It basically functions like an AK, but it's a shotgun.
Mhm.
And it, like you said, like if you're going up against a save, every like they're not gonna have armor or they're not going to have helmets, and you can be less precise with your headshots and still get that instant kill, which
Yeah.
which is where I think shotguns kind of shine in the game, is going for headshots, because you don't have to aim precisely at their head. You have a bit of wiggle room, and all it takes is one pellet.
Yeah. And so if that's the case, if the Sega is D tier, then if we move on to the SPAS 12, the SPAS 12 is just F tier because
Absolutely F tier. Garbage shotgun.
it is literally a worse version of the Sega. It does the same exact damage. Yeah, it's $1,800 as opposed to 4,200, but has all the same armor pen values and everything. It has less capacity, and you have to load the shells manually. And then if you want to get the extra one, you have to rack the side and then put another one. And what most new players don't know is that if you hit the trigger grab on the
Yeah, you can't even use the sights by default. You have to move the stock out of the way to be able to aim the thing.
and the fire cap is set at 300 rounds a minute, which is slower than most trigger figures. And like, so yeah, it's literally just a worse version of the Sega 12. Like, there's no reason to use this SPAS 12.
I will say you can akimbo them if you like alternate fire between your hands.
Yeah.
But even with that, it's more expensive than a sawed off if you're gonna akimbo shotguns, and it's just not a good shotgun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it has
it's
no place in the meta. Even in casual play, it's not really there.
Yeah, it's F tier for sure. I wouldn't even use this thing in TTT, so it's about it. So then we get to arguably the best shotgun, which is the pump shotty.
I would say best shotgun. It has that manual reloading that the SPAS has, but I think it makes up for that. One, with the sights. The sights are pretty decent.
Mm-hmm.
You can also put like a red dot or something on it.
Yeah. You can also put a vertical grip on it, I think, too, which is really
that's true. Or an 8x, I think, if you're memeing.
Yeah. But the other good thing about the pump shotty is that so it's 15 damage per pellet, like the other shotguns we just talked about, but it shoots 10 pellets as opposed to 6, so it does a maximum of 150. So this thing is, I mean, I see a couple of my teammates using this on like eco rounds or like anti-eco or whatever.
Yeah, anti-eco, melting people without like rifles.
Yeah. And it's $1,500, so it's a reasonable price. It gives $600 per kill, and you can shoot the thing fast too. Like,
yeah,
I see,
you definitely can. Like Budgie has some great clips of using this.
He got around on us when we scrimmed last week, and I'm just like, oh my god. And it was like he clutched like 3K or something like there.
Yeah. And because it has those higher pellet quantities, it also makes it viable for medium range. Long range, you're still not viable, but medium and short range, it's totally usable.
The one thing that I have to like knock this thing down a little bit for is that it has 0% helmet penetration. It's the only gun in the game where if you shoot somebody in the helmet, it does 0 health damage to them.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
that's a fun fact.
So you can test this on yourself in like the kill house or the firing range. But if you like buy a helmet and you know do the thing and shoot yourself in the helmet, you'll literally take 0 damage. And so I mean, I don't know, it's weird. I'm just like,
that is a bit weird.
And so then it's the only gun where it's encouraged to go for body shots instead of headshots, unless they have no health, in which case then go for headshots.
Yeah, and you have 10 pellets to try and get a headshot as well.
And then the thing is, the helmet damage is 25, so I think it takes 4 hits. And I don't know whether here's the thing, like helmet damage and armor damage with all these, I don't know whether it's 15 per pellet or whether
I'm pretty sure it's per pellet on all that.
Yeah, so I think you have to hit, but like I think you have to hit 4 pellets to knock the helmet off. But even then, just the no helmet penetration, that's definitely interesting. It would be nice if it was like in line with the other shotguns, but even then, like if you land a shot with this, you can, if anything, against somebody with armor, you can like at least knock their armor off and like half their health, and that can just be super devastating.
So where are you putting it?
Where would I put it? Probably C or B.
I'm gonna say B. I think that it's kind of in line with the sawed off in my mind. The sawed
Hmm.
off, you can akimbo it and have it just like one in a corner, but the primary like shotgun, if you're gonna buy a shotgun to actually like use it, I
Yeah,
think you'd go for the 590.
yeah. Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I think this thing has more of a use, like it has equal or more of a use than the sawed off. So, and like it actually, like again on anti-ecos, this thing is definitely devastating if you're just trying to hold like close quarters and you don't want to like buy an SMG. So,
Let's
I
talk
mean,
about SMGs next.
heck yeah. What do we got first?
Uh, we got the beta gun, the Vector.
The Vector. Um, so the only things so the only things I know about this is that it does 20 damage. It has 10% armor penetration. It has, or I'm guessing it has 10% armor penetration. I really haven't tested much of the beta
Yeah.
weapons.
So all the values, it's like not fully implemented into the game, I don't think.
Hmm.
But where I think it's going to fit in the meta, it's going to be very fast fire rate. That's kind of what the Vector's known for. The recoil, probably pretty manageable. It has, in real life, an interesting mechanism to handle that. You can
Hmm.
throw all your attachments on it, your grips, your optics.
Yeah.
And so I think this is probably going to fit in at the top of the SMG classes.
I would think that if anything, it's going to be a better version of the MP5.
Yeah, that's where I see it fitting in as well.
Because unfortunately, like with the MP5 and the Vector, they're both 4 hits to the helmet to knock it off. Like it does 25 helmet damage, and then the helmet pen's only 25%. And then I'm guessing that its armor pen is going to be about the same at 10%, like most other SMGs. And it's got the capacity of 30 plus one, and like you said, it'll be fast firing. And it'd be interesting to see like if its recoil is like super manageable like it is IRL. But I think if anything, it'll be in line with or either slightly better or slightly worse than the MP5. Because again, I don't know how this thing is going to be priced. It could get priced more expensive than the MP5, and then also kill reward wise. So, um,
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'm optimistic. I think it's going to be a killer gun just because of the fire rate. Normally, traditionally in Pavlov, the high fire rate guns, when they first get implemented, are almost OP. Like the P90 was crazy for the longest time. The
mhm,
FAMAS is kind of crazy now. The
yeah,
Glock is kind of crazy. Like you get something with a lot of bullets going down range, and you can get somebody
yeah,
that can control the recoil and put them on target
yeah.
accurately. The time to kill just goes down. So I'm going to put it up at A. I think this is going to be the king of the SMGs.
Ooh,
I'm
okay.
going to predict it.
I Okay. I mean, I kind of put it at C, but you've got me considering it moving it up to B. But again, like at least with the beta weapons, like for those that
It
are
obviously
ever watching,
depends on what it's priced at. That would
yeah,
be a
absolutely,
huge determining factor. If it's like
yeah,
$3,000, it'll be like D or F. Nobody's going to buy it.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I mean, I see it functioning very similar to how the MP5 functions, with maybe a little bit more like versatility or recoil management. So I mean,
It'll
that's really
be
about it.
the king of the four spies is what
Yeah.
I'm hoping for.
So then I think next on the list we actually have the MP5. Is that right?
Yeah.
So then in terms of in-game stats, it's priced at $1,600, which is on the more expensive side of SMGs. You can put pretty much any attachment you want on it, although I don't think you really need to. Its kill reward is $400, which is lower for the SMGs. It does 20 damage, does 30 armor damage, meaning it takes 4 hits to knock off armor. It has an armor penetration of 10%, which is in line with most of the other SMGs. Its helmet damage is 25, kind of like I was saying earlier, and then the helmet pen is also 25%. So it takes 4 headshots to knock off a helmet, which is a lot.
It is a lot. It is very unnerving. You could put like the 3 round burst on, hit every shot in the head, and they just look at you like you didn't do anything to them.
Yeah. That's kind of a lot for a video game, but uh even kind of going on. So it is one of the faster firing SMGs. It's set to shoot at 1,000 rounds per minute. And when I talk about fire rate and stuff, that's also subjective to like I think frame rate and refresh rate or whatever. It's kind of weird, but all the stats that I have are pulled from game values, so it's set to shoot at 1,000 rounds a minute. So when you look at the time to kills against armor, it's like 480 milliseconds, which isn't bad. And then against no armor, it kills in 300 milliseconds, which is actually really good. That's comparable to blinking your eye. And then other than that, I mean, it takes 5 to 8 shots to kill. And I mean, it's just like, I think there's other SMGs that do its job better. So it's kind of, it doesn't really see much use, in my opinion. I think there's better SMGs to use than the MP5.
I like it. I think that there are a lot of cool things about it. Like you can collapse the stock and extend it, which doesn't actually change anything, but it looks cool. You can throw all your attachments on it, and it's like an iconic gun to use. But in Pavlov, like you said, in the situations where you would use an MP5, there's almost always something that does its job better. I can't think of a situation where the MP5 exclusively is the gun to use.
Yeah. Which gets me to thinking that I kind of want to put this at D tier.
I'm with you on D tier.
Okay. I will say like one good thing about the MP5 is that its recoil is actually really, really easy to control. Like
it is very easy to control. It is probably very new player friendly. If you're not used to controlling recoil in VR, you might want to give the MP5 a try because there isn't much of it.
Yeah. I mean, I always get mad every time I get killed by one of these. I'm just like, what? Like, but I mean, it is pretty easy to control. But I mean, other than that, that's the only thing it really has going for it. But I mean, it's high level play wise. There's not really much of a reason to use it. And then we get to another commonly used weapon in pubs, not so commonly in Search and Destroy.
Yeah,
the P90.
This gun, look how they massacred my boy. It is so. Oh, how the mighty have fallen. 50 round capacity, high fire rate. You'd think this be a killer, but the recoil is atrocious on this.
Plus, the armor damage is only 20, so it takes 5 shots to armor to get rid of it. Same 10%. The helmet pen is nice, but it's also 4 hits to the helmet to, so like I think that first shot will do like 75 and then just drastically goes down. I don't know. The helmet penetration or helmet bleed as it's labeled in the files is really weird. And I wish there was just numbers so I can see it, but it's all, the health bar and everything. So it is the fastest firing SMG at 1,200 rounds a minute. I can't hit a goddamn thing with it because it's just where the barrel is and where the sights are so different that I feel like I'm just whiffing everything, or like I'll be aiming the sights at the head.
It's a lot easier if you buy like an EOTech or a Red Dot instead of trying to use the irons. It makes it a lot more usable. But even then, you can do the trick where you physically rotate your controllers 90 degrees, so you're shooting it like gangster style. And the recoil changes from going it changes so it's going like up and down, and you can kind of control it easier. So two-handing it gangster style is the way to shoot the P90, but even that, it's really hard to control. Not a good gun. I'm saying F tier.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know how low we're gonna go, but yeah, I mean, and plus it's the most expensive SMG of all.
It's tied with $2,000. That's
and
crazy.
It only gives $300 for kill reward. And the thing is, the P90 in real life shoots the same round as the 5.7, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, you would think it would have huge armor pen, but
no.
I think this is a case of the devs seeing an overwhelmingly OP gun and nerfing it too much.
Which, I mean...
it happens. It's hard. Balance is a pain in the ass. It's super hard to do. But they massacred my boy.
Yeah, for reals. But yeah, P90, absolutely F tier. But then we get to something else, which I'm starting to like a little bit more.
Really? You're starting to like it? The Bison?
I'll tell you. So we get to the Bison, which used to be the AK-74U, I think, way back in the day. So it's $1,400. I think this has more of a purpose in pubs than in actual competitive. But here's a couple cool things about it. It's one of the two SMGs that has good armor penetration. It has 60% armor penetration and it has 35 armor damage. So it knocks out armor in 3 hits. It does 20 damage, so it'll be a 5-hit kill. And then the helmet damage is 100, so it knocks a helmet off in 1 hit. And then the helmet pen is 50%. Plus, it has really good capacity, almost like the P90. It has 45 rounds in the mag plus one. The one thing that does hold it back is that its rate of fire is only 705 rounds a minute, so it is the slowest shooting submachine gun. Um, but I mean, I've seen people use these like in pubs as like a save round weapon, and it actually works pretty decently. Like again in pubs. I don't know how much this would work in competitive, but like it's like actually decent with the whole armor pen thing, and it's got
I see it
the
now and then on Force Buys, but it really depends on your economy and what you're doing.
abs-
It's
it's an investment for sure. Like $1,400 to try to spend on a save round is probably too much, and so that's probably why you won't see it. In terms of anti-ecoing, um there's probably better choices, but I will say this is definitely good at dealing with like multiple enemies without reloading because of just that 45 round mag capacity. It's I think it's I think at a high level it's probably more gimmicky than anything, and plus you can't really put sights on it. I do kind of like the sights because they're kind of AK-47 sights, but I mean I think I have a soft spot for this a little bit. It might go like C tier for me.
I was also thinking C tier. I think it's better than an MP5 is what I was judging that off of.
It has that armor pen. Absolutely. Like it's the fact that it has that armor penetration and just that it so like it makes it from so it would be like a 5-hit kill against unarmored and then 6 against armor. So I think I mean, I don't know. It'd be interesting to see this used more, but I mean, I think this is more of like a pub weapon, if anything, which is
Yeah,
why I put it
I'd
C
agree
tier.
with that. Something that I don't think will be a pub weapon in this upcoming season is the UMP. I think this is going to make a comeback.
I think so too, and I've been trying it out in some matches. It's a good freaking like anti-eco weapon. And so to kind of go over the stats, it's $1,200. So besides the mini Uzi, it's the cheapest SMG. Um, it gives you $800 per kill reward, which is the most of any gun tied with the 1911. It does 25 damage. This 25 armor damage, so it knocks armor off in 4 hits. The armor pen is it's 10%, so it's not the best against armored players, but it has that 2-hit headshot potential because it does that helmet damage of 100, and then the helmet pen is 50. So even if you hit the headshot and somebody takes you out, that means that the person is one tap to revo. Um, it has 25 rounds in a mag, and then it shoots at 750 rounds a minute. So I mean, the UMP against unarmored opponents can actually be really devastating.
Yeah, there are some obvious downsides. It like shoots the same bullet as the 1911, so it's like an airsoft gun in terms of velocity.
Mhm.
You're not going to be able to hit super long shots with this at all. But the situation that I think this really shines is your team wins round one, the pistol round. You buy a UMP to go up against the other team. The other team's probably going to buy all Revos. And you have that $800 kill bonus if you get a couple kills that I think more than makes up for it. And you have an SMG on round two.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
super great. I'm a huge fan of it.
I mean, this is it really I think this will probably get some use this season. It's just especially on just anti-ecos, like especially if you hit headshots, because obviously it'll be a one-hit headshot against no helmet. So and plus the fact that it does 25 damage. So it's basically doing the same damage as an AK would against unarmored players, and it shoots faster. So um yeah, I mean the UMP, like I definitely would put that
What are you thinking?
A or B.
I'm torn between A and B as well. I think that I'm probably gonna go with B. I think that if the vector's implemented the way I think it would be a better choice. But I don't know. It's a solid choice, solid B. It's above average. It's what you want on round 2 if you win
Yeah,
pistol
and
round.
the thing is too, like it's super accurate, and like it's especially anti-eco. Like you have to consider whether you want to buy armor or not. Most people do buy armor and helmet. Um, if anything, like this might be my lack of experience, but I might just only buy armor if I'm thinking that everybody's buying Revos, because what happens if somebody gets a kill and then picks up an SMG? I don't want to be on the same playing field as them. So I mean, if I had the armor, then I mean I at least have some resistance. But
And even going up against armor, it has the fire rate and it's a 2-shot headshot. It's
yeah,
very decent
mhm.
against armor if you can click on their heads.
Again,
It's
and then again, you get $800 a kill. So if you get an ace, that's 4 grand right there, and then plus win bonus to 3250. Like you can buy an op on round 3 or like a 50 on round 3. It's ridiculous how much this can just shift your economy if you're able to get kills with it on anti-eco. So that's why I was like BA. Like it's not like the best. Like it's definitely the king of anti-eco. That's what I gotta say about it.
yeah,
Uh,
I agree with that.
all right.
Uzi
What's
next.
Uzi? Yeah. So this is the one weapon where you should really dual wield it, actually.
I completely agree. If you're gonna use this, you want one in each hand.
Yeah. Um, its stats are in line with pretty much the other 9mm SMGs. It holds 30 rounds. It shoots 967 rounds a minute, and then dual wielding. It's double that, so whatever you want to. So it's just because the iron sights are really kind of weird to use, and especially with the kick of it, when you're two-handing it, they can kind of get in the way of where you're shooting. So just being able to dual wield it at close range, I mean, that's where this gun functions best.
Yeah, I agree. I think that there is totally a use for this at top level play. Like if you're in the last round and you're a couple like 100 short of armor FAMAS, you can buy armor and 2 Uzis for less than that. And there are situations where this would just melt you at close range. So you
Mhm.
have armor, you're sitting in a corner with one in each hand, you melt whoever comes around the corner, and then you can just take the rifle and you're back in the game.
Yeah. I didn't even think about that. So, I mean, yeah.
That's the situation where I would probably use it in a league game is if you have your economy in such a way, either through poor management or just the luck of the draw or whatever, where you
Yeah.
don't have $3,000, you have like, what would you need, like 26, 27, something like that.
Yeah.
You buy
Mhm.
armor in 2 of these, they're like 850, I think.
Yeah.
And or 950, it's
They're
just over
they're
pistol.
950, so you need
Yeah.
2,900, yeah.
Yeah, so if you're just short of 3K to buy armor from us, you buy armor in 2 of these and you're viable at close range, even against rifles and armor.
Mhm. So, I mean, this is probably C, D-ish. It's very situation
Yeah, I'm
specific.
going to say C. It's very situational dependent. The economy, I think, makes up for it. The way that if you find yourself in that situation, it could be, it could turn the tide of a match. I think that it might be too situational. Like in any other circumstance besides that, like you would never just buy one of these.
Yeah. There's
I might drop it down to a D. What do you think?
um, I think because of the situationalness of it, yeah. I mean, and plus the fact that it's really only good if you dual wield them, yeah. I mean, and that like if and we're talking like high level stuff, so I mean it's a gimmick strat if anything. Very fun in pubs though.
I do not think it is as viable close around corners as two sawed off though. I think
Yeah.
that if you're gonna go between the akimbo uh, guns at close range, you're still gonna want two sawed offs, but that's where the economy comes in. You can buy 2 Uzis and armor cheaper than you can buy 2 sawed offs and armor.
You know that if I have 2950, I'm gonna buy an Uzi and a sawed-off.
Yeah, I've had that situation come up where I go to buy two sawed-offs, I can't afford it, so I have to buy a sawed-off and an Uzi, and then you're in a really weird situation.
Yeah, I don't know, but I think D actually kind of suits it better. So I think then the last one of the modern stuff that we have is the AR 9, or do we want to do the?
Well, I don't know what the VSS is gonna be. It's weird. It's like an integrally suppressed rifle SMG. It
Mhm.
has a fast fire rate.
So I
I don't
mean,
know.
if it's like the VSS or AS-FAL or whatever, I've seen that classified as assault rifles. I've seen it classified as I think if anything, it'll be like a hybrid assault rifle SMG. So
If we do get that faction-sided weapon things, it might be the counterpart to the Vector,
it
as like the
very well could be.
top level SMG for the T side, then, and the Vector would be the
Yeah.
CT side.
And I mean, what's interesting is that again, it comes with that integral suppressor, so you get a free suppressor. Not that I know how it's going to affect kill reward,
Yeah,
but
suppressors in Pavlov are weird. It sound wise, like people with headsets on will probably still hear you.
Mhm,
You lose the tracers. A lot of people use tracers to aim. Where I
mhm,
think suppressors really come in handy is if you're doing a lot of shooting through stuff. Like on Office, if you have a suppressed AK, you can shoot through that bookshelf and they can't return fire because the tracers through stuff gives away your position and they kind of can
yeah,
spam back at you. But
mhm.
if you have a suppressor, you can spam through soft cover and you have less of a chance of getting
Just
return
just
fire.
kinda just kinda looking at the stats that I do know, I think it'll probably be in line with the SMGs because its bullet velocity is the same as the 9 mil SMGs. Does 20 damage, it only has a 20 round mag capacity, so, I mean, on my table that I have, I labeled it as an assault rifle, but I I like
It varies totally by game. It's such an odd gun.
it's weird. Um, Personally, I think it'll probably be like C or D
Yeah, it's hard
because
to classify it. It could be like I'm sure whatever values are in the beta now are going to change upon release, and it could be anything. I think we're just going to have to go with C average and wait and see what happens.
yeah. I mean, if it's got a 20 round mag though, and based on the damage values that I do know, like it's still that 5 hit headshot, like like it's yeah. It might just be around the same as like an MP5 or something. So I mean C or D. We'll have to wait and see. So um and
You
then
want to talk about
do
the AR9 then?
I mean sure. So I don't really know anything about this. I mean, obviously, it's an AR platform. It shoots a 9 millimeter. It's probably going to shoot decently fast, and it'll probably do the same thing around, like the MP5 or
I think
like,
it's going to be another MP5.
yeah, but
It
maybe.
can take attachments like grips and sights and all that.
Mhm,
It's a like 9 millimeter subgun.
mhm,
In real life, it's very similar to an MP5. I think in the game, it's going to end up another MP5.
mhm, for sure. And then, so we get to the weapon that kind of bridges the SMGs and the assault rifles together. And although it's labeled as an SMG, it's definitely an assault rifle, the
You know,
FAMAS.
I think that it is an SMG bywheel simply because the rifle bywheel was full. I think that
Yeah.
I'm going to call this a rifle.
Okay. Yeah, for sure. I like I said, I mean, I feel like it bridges between assault rifles and SMGs, but this thing is with the AUG becoming a 3 round burst, the FAMAS is gone up in usage so much and it keeps up with the M4 for the most part. It is like maybe a hit more to kill, but it shoots 100 rounds faster. Um, it takes 2 hits to knock the helmet off, but I mean,
That happens so fast. The rate of
uh,
fire is so fast on this.
plus, here's the thing, so the recoil doesn't, like, peak and go side to side, it just goes a little bit side to side, like, it kinda like S curves, and it just keeps climbing for 25 rounds, so if you literally just pull down, you can get used to the recoil really quick. I honestly think this is S tier, like, and especially with how it's $2,000
You
and
get in terms of economy, it's $2,000. I agree with you on S tier, but you don't get a kill bonus. I
Hmm.
think that that hurts it a lot. You don't get any attachments. The iron sights
Hmm.
are awful. Most people
Yeah.
that use it use the tracers to aim
Hmm.
and just kind of like hip fire almost.
Either that, or they might like kind of tilt the gun up a little bit and just use that front fork because that's a little bit better. But even then, like this thing, all like at close range, this can be super devastating, especially if you're caught off guard.
I'd
But I
say
think,
close and medium. I think
yeah.
that
Mhm.
there are some people that can control it at long range,
Mhm.
but most players, you're kind of stuck short to medium range with the FAMAS. But
Mhm.
at those ranges, it is totally
Yeah.
viable against armor and rifles.
Also, fun fact: you should not put a suppressor on this because of that $0 kill reward, and because suppressors take off $200. You actually lose $200 per kill if you put a suppressor on it. So unless you're just trying to flex, like don't put a suppressor on it. There's no
And
reason.
like I said, most people even use this tracers to aim, so you're just hindering yourself. It does sound
Exactly.
cool shooting it suppressed, but
Yeah.
it's not a wise decision.
I feel like the FAMAS has been like, really powerful in every game that I've played that it's been in. Like, I come from Call of Duty land, and so it's been good. It was good like MW2 was good in Black Ops 1. Like it's just a good gun. I don't know why.
Last season, Arctic mained this for a lot of like buys. When we had money for AK and ARs, a lot of people still bought the FAMAS, and people were like making fun of us. But now all of a sudden, the league has kind of shifted towards the FAMAS, and
Mhm.
everybody's calling it OP and all that stuff. It hasn't changed. The damage values are the same and everything as it has been a year ago.
I think it's because you had the AUG, which was just basically the same thing as an M4, just with extra mag capacity and $400 cheaper, and it came with the front foregrip already. So I think the AUG was definitely, I would guess, is probably the top of the meta. I mean, especially when I started doing more competitive stuff, it was still full auto, and you saw people buy that a lot.
That's true, and the 3 round burst definitely knocked it back a peg. Do you want to
Yeah.
do the AUG next?
Yeah, sure. But FAMAS currently right now it's definitely S tier.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Great gun.
The AUG definitely had a fall from grace. If this was last season and I was talking, I would definitely put it S tier, but it's probably like B C ish now. Uh, so the first thing is you have to take the ACOG scope off, or else you lose $50 per kill off of that. So you'll only get $250. And I even made sure to test this and just like double check. But yeah, so you're either forced to learn the non-existent iron sights or just put a
I
dot
don't
sight
know
on it.
about non existent. You can take the ACOG off, and there's like a groove along the rail that is
Yeah,
totally viable. You're just kind of aiming down a valley, and you just
true.
put whatever you're shooting at. At like long ranges, you'll have problem, but you have tracers you can adjust at long ranges. I think taking the ACOG off and just using rail
Yeah.
is viable.
I definitely saw like from the matches that I watched, like a few people do that. And like the thing is, if you're able to get the one burst to the head, because this will knock a helmet off it in one hit and then do the headshot. So you only need two shots to take a helmet off. So I mean, I definitely would like to try this thing at long range a bit more and see how it sort of functions, and like if the burst spread isn't like ridiculous to control. Um
Pre nerf, I'd agree with you. S tier in its current state, I'd actually leave the ACOG on. Where I think this shines is at those medium and long ranges. With the ACOG and the 3 round burst and like the damage values that it has, putting it on 3 round burst or even switching it to single fire and going for those long shots with the magnified scope, I
yeah.
think that's where this gun shines. On some of the bigger maps, like in a battle royale workshop map, I would
Mhm.
almost pick the AUG over than AK because you have that magnified optic and you can be
Yeah.
better at long ranges.
Okay. Yeah. And like plus it's got the highest capacity of all the assault rifles at 36 plus one as opposed to 30. So you get 12 bursts, which is crazy. So I mean,
I still think it's an okay buy. It definitely has fallen from grace. It's no longer S tier, but I'm gonna give it a C.
See,
I'm gonna
okay.
say it's an average rifle.
Hmm. Again, if you can hit that one burst headshot, like you just surprise the crap out of people with it. And like inside the burst, it has the same fire rate as the M4. Like inside the burst, it shoots 800 rounds a minute, and that's where the M4 is set at. But uh, yeah, it's like before it got nerfed, it was essentially the same thing as an M4, but just cheaper.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, I think it definitely shines long range. So I like C tier.
Another thing
Um,
about the ACOG is you have the magnified optic, but then also in the mount for the ACOG, there's like a little circle you can see through. And so if
mhm.
you don't want a magnified optic when you're shooting, you can just look through that circle and it'll act almost like a ×1 magnification sight then. So
Interesting.
the ACOG in Pavlov is both like a 4x and a 1x optic.
Nice. Yeah, interesting. I mean, I don't use the ACOG too much, so I can't really speak on that, but that's definitely interesting. That's maybe something I'll have to try out. Like I could see the AUG being really good on like a long and like oil rig or something, where it's just that massively long sight line,
Yeah.
you know? Yeah, for sure. Um let's do one that's really easy to so AK-12 F tier, no question about that.
I I think that there is a question about that. I think that it is pretty bad. However, I think that there've been some recent changes to it that bumps it up from F tier to D tier. I think that I would still choose an AUG over it. The recoil's bad. It can take attachments though. Like
Yeah.
foregrips and stuff like that. But I don't know about F tier. Like the reload is not it's the AK style reload, so you don't have a bolt release, so you have to manually charge it. But I'd take it over a P90, and it's only a couple $100 more than a P90.
So what I like to tell people about this weapon is I like to compare it to the Bison, and here's why. So the AK-12 is $2,300 and the Bison's $1,400. Obviously, SMG versus AR, whatever. Same thing with the kill reward. The AK-12, I think it was buffed up to 22 damage, which the only thing that actually affects is if you shoot in the knee or below, it would be a 6-hit kill versus the 7-hit kill if it did 20. Um, so essentially body shot wise, they're doing the same amount of bullets to kill. Armor damage, Bison's 35, AK-12 is 45, so they both take 3 hits to knock off armor. Armor penetration, the Bison kind of loses out just a little bit because of the 60% versus the 100%. And then the helmet damage, they both knock a helmet off in one hit. The helmet pen, I guess, is a little bit better with the AK-12, being at 75% versus 50. But the Bison has a greater mag capacity. It shoots faster at 705 rounds a minute versus the AK-12 being 631 rounds a minute. And so the Bison, for example, is a little bit better at killing people with no armor. And I mean, ever so slightly loses out against armor, but I mean, they're almost practically like this, and
Yeah.
they have the same exact bullet velocity. The AK-12 has a bullet velocity of 1,600 or 1,640 feet per second, and the Bison is the exact same. So they're literally like the Bison is just only slightly better. Like I think the Bison would be a better buy than the AK-12 just because of. I mean, yeah, it might
Yeah, you
lose.
you kind of selling me out that, and due to the price difference, I think you're right. I might have to bump it down to F tier. That just makes no sense to buy
And
when you
then
have the
so
Bison so
here's
close.
here's another really weird odd fact. So the recoil when you're shooting the AK-12 does not peak at all. So it's just straight vertical, but it's so much that even with a vertical grip, it really doesn't do much of anything. So and you like normally with assault rifles, you would only buy the angled grip, but with the AK-12, you like literally need to buy the vertical grip, and even then, it doesn't really do much of anything. The iron sights are okay, but I mean, um, it's just like there's no reason to buy an AK-12. There's no reason to buy an AK-12, I think, and that's why it sits in F tier until it gets fixed up or something.
Bumping up the damage a little bit, I think, would help it out. Differentiate it from the SMGs in terms of armor and base damage.
If it did so, I mean, what you'd have to do at that point is you'd have to bump it up to 25, which means to the body, it would kill faster than the AK-47 against armor, which, that would bring it all the way to, let me do some math right now. So it would kill if if the AK-12 was a 4-hit kill at its fire rate, it would kill in 0.38 seconds, which would still be 10 is that right? 10, yeah, 10 milliseconds under the M4. But
Wow.
yeah,
That would definitely bump it up a few tiers.
yeah, I think. So it
The
would be
recoil
interesting.
would still be rough, though. I don't know if it would surpass the M4.
No, it wouldn't. It would not. I think the recoil would need to like cap off, kind of do like a backwards 7 thing like most of the other guns in this game for it to like actually be sort of viable. And I can see this like, if they decide to do factioned weapons, I could see this being like the Russian version of the M4, like playing it out like that. But I mean, for right now, it's F tier. It
Yeah. You know, it's not F tier. It's the AK.
yeah. I think it's to me, I mean, the thing that obviously this rifle stands out with is that one hit headshot capability, and up close, all you have to do, like personally, the way I do it is like I'll like kind of aim it up and like I'll kind of use the back sights and line it up with the person's head, and just having that one hit headshot capability is devastating.
Absolutely. The one shot headshot really makes it. It's 2500. It's totally buyable. Most like if you're buying rifles, you're probably either buying an AK or an M4.
Hmm.
And depending on your skill level or what you're feeling or the map, if you think you can go for the headshots, like I'd take the AK at closer range because I'm better at hitting headshots closer. So you can
Hmm.
just get that gunfight over with instantly if you hit them in the head.
Hmm.
I also have started suppressing this. With the recent update, the flash from shooting the AK isn't nearly as bad. It used to be pretty hard to even like see the sights when you're shooting it, but since
Hmm.
the update it's not bad, but still I like having the suppressor on it just to get rid of the flash when you're shooting, and
Hmm.
also instinctively shooting. It is faster for me at least to instinctively shoot when you have a longer gun. You have more of like a pull you're sticking out there to just snap to whatever you're aiming at. You
Hmm.
don't even necessarily need to use the sights that much if you get the muscle memory down for aiming.
Yeah. You had we played last week and you had discussed when I was sitting behind the head glitch like in the green building on what was that? The last map that we played.
Stockpile.
Stockpile. Yeah. I was like sitting on the head glitch and you just pop the corner and insta dink me. I'm just like, oh my God.
That's the benefit. If you get a crazy random lucky shot with an AK, you win. If you get
Yeah.
a crazy random headshot with an AR, you're at a huge advantage, but it's not instantly over.
And the thing too is it's the only assault rifle to do 25 damage, so it's a 4-hit kill no matter what. So, I mean, not that I'd use this on like anti-ecos or anything, but against armored opponents, especially since all the assault rifles have 100% armor pen, like this thing is
It's a
that
classic.
yeah.
I personally choose this over an M4, and I'm gonna put it in A.
I would put in an A too. And the one thing that I think either balances it out or holds it back is that its fire rate is 500 rounds a minute, which is kind of slow compared to the other ARs. If this was like 550 or like even getting close to 600, you'd see a lot more people using this. Like a lot more people maining it. You know what I mean? Like even like there's still a lot of people that main it for that one hit headshot potential and just being able to hit it and like kill people in 4 hits or whatever. But I mean, if it was just like 525 or 550 rounds a minute, this thing would be even more disgusting than it already is.
Yeah.
Um, eh, so then I guess we get to basically, yeah. I mean, to me, I think it's pretty much S tier.
Really? I think that the AK-47 and the AR in Pavlov are really well balanced. Balancing is super hard to do in video games,
Mhm.
but these two are what you should balance every other game in the gun around. You
Mhm.
have the one shot headshot potential at 2500, and you have the AR, I think it's 27,
Yeah.
and it has a slightly faster time to kill, but you lose out on that one shot headshot. You can throw all the bells and whistles, the optics, and the foregrips on the AR, not so
Mhm.
on the AK. But I think these two go hand in hand, and they're fairly equal in balancing.
I think the other thing now that I think about it more is that with the M4, if anything, you see most people usually putting like if they have like the extra couple $100, putting the angled grip on it, and that makes it like definitely a little bit better. If we were talking raw M4 versus AK-47, I think they're like pretty well balanced. And I think the thing is that like the M4 most times you usually wind up putting the angled grip on it just to help control that horizontal recoil.
Yeah,
Um,
I agree. At longer ranges, like mid and long range, I'd prefer an angled grip AR with a hollow over an AK. But
mm,
at medium and closer ranges, I think that's where personally
yeah,
my skill level I have the advantage for the AK.
yeah. And if we're talking body shots, the M4 is the fastest killing one. It kills in 370 milliseconds or 0.37 seconds versus the AK-47 because it just shoots so slow to the body. It's 480 milliseconds. But obviously the AK-47 has that one hit against helmet potential, whereas the M4 does not. But even then, the M4 at minimum would be two hits to the head, or if you did one headshot and then two to the body. But I mean, I think maybe now you're convincing me that it's maybe A tier. I mean, I know there's so many people that main the M4 that are really good with it, which maybe had my initial thought being S tier, but I think if anything, the AK and the M4, just because they're the main rifles, like if there was like a borderline between S and A, they would go there.
Yeah, I agree with that. The M4, you can get the recoil control pretty down for the first like 5 rounds, I think.
Mhm.
Where if you just like pull with virtual stock on your non dominant hand down a little bit, you
Mhm.
can consistently get 5 shots on target at medium range, uh,
Absolutely.
which is definitely something that makes it very popular in the higher levels of play.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, the M4 and the AK-47, they're two classic weapons, and they're both, they're like they've always kind of gone up against each other, and they've all kind of done really similar in terms of how they function and like how well they do against each other. And so that kind of leads to the last AR, which is actually another beta AR. It's the Galil.
Yeah, so this is an interesting gun that I'm not sure where it's gonna fit in.
Um, Personally, I mean, the way the I know I'm kind of comparing a lot to like CS and Valorant, and that's just me. The way I sort of see this playing out is like an ever so slightly slower shooting FAMAS, in that maybe it'll be like 50 helmet damage. So it'll take two helmet shots to take off a helmet, and then it might shoot like ever so slightly slower. But this might be like the T version of the FAMAS, and the FAMAS goes to CT if there's faction weapons. Um,
I could see
and
that happening. Comparing it to like real life, it's basically kind of an attempt at a modernized AK almost.
yeah,
So putting it kind of at the high fire rate wasn't something that I really considered, but in terms of putting it in Pavlov and fitting it into the meta, that having it be a faction sided weapon for T's comparable to the FAMAS is definitely a real
yeah.
possibility.
I don't think it would shoot as fast as the FAMAS, and like the way the FAMAS and the Galil are actually balancing Counter Strike is that they're the cheaper variants of the assault rifles, but they're two hit headshots. Um, and so like the Galil on T side is if you're kind of strapped for cash and you still want like a rifle that can do something. So I could see the Galil being like a force buy assault rifle. You know, if you have like $3,000 and the Galil's priced at
How
$2,000,
would it
that
compare to the AUG in your mind?
to the AUG, um, I think it'd be pretty it could wind up being similar in line to the AUG as well too. I mean, I think for now I'll probably put it like C tier since I don't really know much about how it would function in Pavlov. Um,
I think it might end up fitting the same sort of roles as the AUG, but like the closer range. Like where the AUG has a 3-round burst and the magnified optic for longer ranges, maybe
yeah,
this would be a similar sort of gun that operates medium range and
yeah.
close range.
Mhm. I The one thing I do see it being is kind of like a force buy assault rifle. You know, like a cheap assault rifle that you can buy if you're at like 3,000 and you can't afford that AK and you can't afford the M4 and like you maybe not can't even afford the AUG or something, you know. So I could see maybe the Galil getting priced at 2,000. Who knows? But
2,000, that's pretty low.
I mean, um if it like I mean, I with there's like 5 or 6 assault rifles, like, like, it's really hard to kinda predict where it would get placed. I mean, it could get placed at 2,300 and be similar to the AUG, or it could get placed at 2,000. So, I mean, I think maybe that's just my CS kinda chiming in and being like, "This is a $2,000 assault rifle, and this is a force buy weapon." I don't know, but
Yeah, I don't have that same background. I have like 20 hours in Counter-Strike. So
yeah.
most of my experience from this sort of thing comes from Pavlov. So
Right. Mhm.
that's
Yeah.
kind of where I'm coming from.
True, for sure. But we'll see what happens with the Galil. I didn't even know it was getting added until you told me about it. I'm like, oh, really? Or like that it was even leaked or anything in the first place. Because I
Yeah,
think,
Dave has a Patreon. I'm not uh I think they have it set to like the most recent 2 posts are private, but all the other ones are public or something like that. And you can go
yeah,
on there and see what they're working on. And there are
yeah,
some pictures of the beta guns.
yeah, and there's like pictures of beta attachments as well. So I mean, we some people like in the game files already exists a couple of the new weapons, like the Vector and the what else was it? The
Yeah, like
VSS.
a lot of the workshop people find this stuff just like poking around the game files and then spawning it on custom maps as well. So you
Yeah.
can kind of see what the devs are working on that
But
way.
the AR-9 and the Galil or the Ace 52 or whatever it'll be called are currently, at least on the Patreon, these could be subject to change. And so I even in my table that I have, I even said like these are all beta slash planned and these are all subject to change.
That's
So
totally true. There are guns that David posted in the Discord that I don't think ever made it to the game.
hmm,
Uh, so we'll just have to wait and see in the Galil.
yeah. So then I think the last thing we get to for the modern stuff is the snipers and heavies.
Yeah, that's what we're at. So started off with the G3. I think that this is a worse deagle.
Yeah. I mean, it's
It has the 8x. I don't think you can put an 8x on a deagle. So if you're like playing a custom map, maybe a battle royale or something where you have like really really long range, you might want it over a deagle. But it's so situational. You would never buy it in an S&D on like a reasonable size map.
it's $3,500 and you only get $100 per kill. So like you have to basically you'd have to win 2 rounds in a row from buying it in order for it to be anything like worth. And it's a 3 hit kill. And it has 14 rounds in the mag. And I mean, I kind
Yeah. I think that even if you put a red dot on it and a foregrip and trick it out, you're not going to be able to use it at any sort of reasonable close distance just because the recoil is so bad. It
yeah,
recoils crazy.
it just bounces like crazy. So I mean, I kind of put it F tier. If
I'm going to agree with F tier, and I think that in order to get it back into a viable place, that it would be really interesting if there just wasn't recoil for the G3. In real life, it's a heavy rifle, it's got a roller delayed action. If this was basically a deagle without recoil, so you could put a red dot on it and a grip and just like spam it, and then it'd be a 3-shot,
Mhm.
and you could do that quickly on target, I think it could be a viable weapon. But where it is now, I'm agreeing F tier, below
Yeah.
Deagle. It's way too expensive. Why would you ever buy it when you have the Deagle as an option?
Because semi-auto rifles are always interesting because the way they're balanced in different games can be like really interesting. And so the thing about VR is that you don't like have like you can be pretty precise, but obviously like it's not like the precision of a mouse or anything. So that's what, makes the auto sniper so great in Counter-Strike or whatever. Plus the fact that I think it's a two-hit kill. And then in Valorant, there's a semi-auto rifle that's priced a little bit lower than the main rifles, and it's still that one-hit kill, and it's a three-hit body hit or whatever. Obviously, it doesn't have a sniper scope on it, but the recoil isn't that bad either. So, I mean,
If this was a 2-shot kill, I don't think it would be overpowered.
it would be a Revo with a scope. Yeah, I mean, it could be really annoying to go up against.
Like, you're
But
talking about long on oil rig, you wouldn't,
yeah,
like, somebody
you
locks
wouldn't
it
want.
down with this, but
Yeah,
people lock it down with a 50. It
yeah.
it would not break the game.
I think because it's super situational and already because it's such a economical investment. Yeah. I mean, you'd have to play around with it and all that, but and I think, this could be another weapon where like damage fall off balances it
That
fine,
would be
it
huge. If you have a Revo with massive fall off and then you set this up as the 2-shot kill at any range,
yeah.
maybe it has a place again. Who
Or
knows?
even like this is a two-hit kill from close to like pretty far range, say like out to like 100 meters or something like that, and then past 100 meters, it's a three-hit kill. Or like I don't know. There's like different balancing things that you can do with it. But I mean, for right now, it's not really anything special. And so it gets the F tier, especially with just like how you don't really buy it
Yeah,
much at all.
I
And
agree with
then
that.
and then you get to the op, which had a fall from grace as
It
far as
it
I.
was the classic one shot, and it turns out people could figure out how to rapid fire this, and then you
Yeah.
have a machine gun that's a one shot, and it was definitely overpowered and needed to be nerfed.
Hmm.
But where it is now is kind of funky. It does a whole lot of damage. It's not a one shot anymore, but it's pretty close. And so, a viable method that I've seen some people use, I know Basil does this in pubs now and then, is he shoots someone with an op and then just switches to the 1911 because they're going to be a one shot.
Yeah, because I think it does 100 armor damage, so it knocks armor off instantly. So and then it does 90 damage to the body, so it brings it to 10 health. So yeah, you could do this with like a 5.7 or whatever insert pistol choice here. And so what I think would be interesting is if this had like 90% armor penetration and did 100 damage, so that it was, and so this thing would effectively be like a scout. And so, it's one hit to the body and to the head against unarmored opponents. And then against armor, it does 90 damage. So I mean, for right now, I think this is maybe like D tier.
I'm going to give it a bit more than that. I'm going to say it's C tier because there are people that can still spam this and shoot it like a machine gun. And
Yeah.
you can get 2 shots off pretty accurately with this. I'm going to say C tier. It's an average sniper
Mhm.
rifle. Absolutely better than a G3.
Yeah.
Hands down, better than
Absolutely.
a
Yeah.
G3. I'd
Hmm.
say it's probably even better than a Deagle. If, like, you put a Deagle in an ACOG versus an AWP with an ACOG, I would prefer the AWP.
Well, here's the thing too: is even if you get a shot at close range, you swap to a Glock and just burst and finish the guy off. You know,
Yeah.
because it strips the armor, so they will be one hit pretty much no matter what. It's not like they're gonna have armor and the Glock's gonna do like 2 damage or whatever. So
And you're assuming you're going up against full health people. Like, if a teammate hits them once with any of their rifles and then they repeak, you can
yeah,
just get an instant kill.
yeah. I mean, And like, unlike the 50, it does give $100, I believe, from what I tested. I have to double check all the footage I have. Plus, it has better bullet velocity than the 50. It's actually got the most bullet velocity, tied with the auto snipers and the Kar 98 that shoots at 2,624 feet per second. So you don't have to lead your shots nearly as much. So if you're, pubbing around on like a giant map or whatever, this thing can actually be really solid at like very, very long ranges. So, I mean, I'd love to see this used more like a scout, like, um, and I think too, like, what if the price of it was like 2,000? And you could risk using it on like a save round, and you can potentially try to go for like a pick or
Yeah,
whatever.
you hit somebody with an op one, switch to your 1911, suddenly you have an $800 kill bonus off your 1911. That's a one shot.
Yeah.
I think that switching around the armor and dropping the price, uh, I think that would make it a lot more viable. But even now, it's not great. You
Hmm.
wouldn't pick this over, um, I don't know, a whole bunch of other guns. But
Yeah.
I'm putting in an average still. I'm saying
Yeah.
middle of the road. Op still has certain uses.
Hmm. Yeah. There's definitely some things I'd love to see with that, and like it definitely is in a weird balancing spot, being the only like two hit sniper, but still, I mean, it's interesting. Um, and then we get to the 50 cal.
The sniper Barrett M99. I think we know where this is
S.
going.
Yeah, this is absolutely S tier. You can get a quick scope at close range, one hit kill. And you can lock down an angle at far range, one hit kill. And then you can even just like kind of use it to just like do it. It literally, I mean, yeah, it only has one bullet before you have to reload, but still, I mean, you can reload this thing fast. And you see some people who are 50 cal mains do that, and it's just so devastating. I would like if this did have a below the knee reduction of like 5 or 10%, so that you still have that legging thing, and so you have to make sure your shot hits the body. But still, th- this thing is just nuts.
I
And
agree with that. I agree with the legging thing. Like getting your toe shot behind a door as they like spam it through a wall or something and you die is frustrating.
Mhm.
Also, snapping around corners and just like lifting it up a little bit to quickly just spam and the
Yeah,
barrel's so long you can basically just put the end of the barrel in their face as
yeah.
you come around the corner. It's very powerful.
Unless you completely whiff, which I mean, I'd probably do that a lot because I'm trash with snipers. But you will either get the trade at bare minimum or get the kill.
Yeah, I think in terms of balance, it's expensive. You have to invest in it. It's a lot
Yeah.
of money. You're going to need somebody on your team that can use it effectively. If you
Mhm.
just have a team of average players, you're probably going rifles because of the eco factor. You're not going to want to invest
Yeah.
heavily into somebody and then just have it lost and then the other team has a 50.
Yeah. It is the most expensive weapon, being at $4,800. You don't get a kill bonus for it. So I mean, economically, I think that's well priced. In fact, you could bump that up to 5 grand. But even then, like, you need to there's specific situations where you need to have a little bit of skill with this. You can't I mean
The fire rate, being able to shoot this as fast as some people can, it
yeah.
does take skill to do that. I
Yeah.
think that perhaps some sort of loading mechanism where it slows people down on the 50 might be worth
Mhm.
it balance wise. The reason that the 50 was kind of implemented in the first place is because they wanted a one shot weapon, but people were spamming the op and making
Yeah.
the op OP. So slow it down. Um, it's a single shot, but still, it can be pretty fast.
The other thing too is that the strafe speed and the movement speed, if you accidentally stick your barrel in the ground, and that can happen a lot if you're just kind of like holding your gun down or whatever, and you'll just notice yourself slow down. And you're just like, why am I moving so slow? And I think that kind of balances it a little bit, but it definitely still is. it's top tier. There's no question about it.
Absolutely. Another thing that we haven't really touched on is the noise factor. If you're carrying a 50, your player will make like rustling noises as you walk
Mhm.
around. Even if you're walking at the like slowest speed, you're not sprinting, you
Hmm.
still make movement as you go about the map. And so, like, the more shit you carry, the more noise you make. So that's why you sometimes see people like ditch their 1911 at spawn, because it adds a little bit of whatever variable value the game uses to bump up your noise levels. So if
Hmm.
you're carrying a 50 on your back and you have a rifle in your hand, you are
Yeah.
making noise as you go
Yeah.
around the map.
Hmm. For sure. For sure. But I mean, either way, this thing S tier for sure. It,
Absolutely.
and then we have like the LMG,
Yeah,
which
it's kind of in a weird place. What do you
yeah,
think?
it's hard. So it's $3,000. It gives a kill reward of $100. It does 20 damage like all the other assault rifles. It has 60 armor penetration, so it knocks off armor in 2 hits. It's set to shoot at 1,000 rounds a minute. So in theory, this thing should kill fast. Well, in against armor, this thing kills faster than the other assault rifles. I think just because of the movement speed, because of the reload, and because of the recoil of it, I think that's why it's probably like B C tier, and just
Yeah.
because of the economic advancement.
You do get a bonus if you're not at full height. Like if you're crouching down, you get a recoil
Yeah.
assist. That's kind
Yeah,
of unique. I thought for the longest time it was the only gun that had that, but perhaps the MG42 also does. That needs
it
some
does
testing.
actually. Well, we'll get to that. But the MG42 does have that same bonus, but it's like night and day. Like there's so much horizontal recoil until it peaks, and then it does exclusively horizontal. But when you crouch, it's very minimal horizontal recoil. All you got to do is just pull down. So
Yeah, so I think that's a neat game mechanic. In terms of the M249, I'm probably, oh, I don't know, B or C is where I'm kind of at.
I'm thinking I I almost want to give it the benefit of the doubt and go B, but I feel like I have to put it C.
It's expensive. It's 3K.
Mhm.
That's like quite a bit. If like
That's
you're
more
you
that's more
would,
expensive than any of the other AR.
yeah, like you would be buying this over like AK and two flashes.
Yeah.
So
Plus, just the movement speed when you're like actually aiming down sights, it's much slower. You can't like jiggle as much when you're aiming down the sights with it. So you're just kind of like a sitting duck. So that's why I'm kind of putting it towards the C tier.
I'm fine with C. I think
Um,
that that's a kind of a place for it. The reload is very slow. It did get better in the recent update. It before you could kind of bug out the belt as you tried to reload it, but now
mhm,
it's kind of locked in, so it's a lot
yeah.
simpler reload.
It'd be interesting to see like a couple people trying this out. I don't know. It's definitely, and the other thing too is obviously the barrel overheats, and that the barrel
Yeah,
overheats to the
that's
point where you
true.
can't shoot after 75 bullets. So I like went and tested it just to like double check, but yeah, I mean, I think it's C tier just kind of based off of how it where it is like compared to all the other weapons. And then I think the last modern
Yeah, let's do the Scar next.
so as far as I know, it's got the same exact stats as the G3.
I agree, which kind of confuses me. In my mind, these like the Scar 20 and the G3 are basically the same gun.
Mhm.
I don't understand where this is going to fit into the meta in any other situation than being another G3. Maybe the G3 will be like the T side Scar and then this will be
That's
the
what I'm thinking.
CT in terms
Mhm.
of faction weapons,
Mhm.
but with the Deagle and stuff like that, still, I don't see how this would possibly have a place. Maybe this would be the auto sniper that's a two shot or something, but
I mean, for right now, I think I think based off the G3 and based off the stats that we know, we kind of have to put it F tier because
yeah,
as far as I see, of what I have, and plus it only has 10 rounds in the mag plus one as opposed to 14 plus one. So yeah, I'm thinking it's probably going to be F tier for right now, unless something completely changes and it does something miraculous, you know. But for now, it'll be F tier.
Where do you want to jump next? Knife and taser?
Do we want? I guess we could just do those right now. Knife. The way the knife works is interesting, as far as I know. So if I think if the person that you stab with it isn't moving, it does like 70 damage, and then if you throw it and it hits somebody, it'll always do 100 damage. And then if the person is like sprinting or whatever, and you stab them, or if they're moving and you stab them, it does 100. It's really interesting how it works.
So it's interesting, but it can be quite frustrating because if you have the knife in your hand and you poke somebody with the knife, they're not guaranteed to die. It is based upon the relative movement speed of like your hand versus their movement speed or something about that. I don't quite know specifically how the math works out in the game, but there are plenty of situations where you on your screen shoved a knife into their chest and then they just take like half health and turn around and shoot you.
Yeah, that could be annoying. And then based like on connections and stuff, trying to throw a knife at somebody and trying to hit them, it can be. I usually try to go for the close range throwing knife because I know that if it does hit, it'll guarantee the kill. Unless we're like point blank with each other. Like I know that like pre knife velocity update, I would see a lot of like trade kills with knives where people like somebody would be shooting at somebody and like they'd be like right up against each other and each of them just grabs their knife and stabs each other and it'd be a trade.
Yeah, another thing that changed in a Pavlov update is the knife sticks in the body now. You have to pick it up out of the body. No longer can you just sit in a corner, turn the corner with two knives in your hand and go through an entire team killing them all. Like the knives stick into people, which was kind of controversial when it updated, but I think that was a good change. It was
that's probably
rough.
a good balancing change. And then I feel like the knives, if anything, the throwing velocity is a little bit better. Like I know it's sad you can't cross map knife as effectively. Because I mean, I watched a couple matches where people did that and it was just like ridiculous. It was like some old Call of Duty throwing knives with how just fast you could throw it. But the other good thing is that the knife gives you $1,200.
That's the real juicy bit about it is the kill bonus. You get a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's tied for the most. If you get a kill with a flashbang or you get a knife kill, those two are
they're
the
both
most.
they are both $1,200, which is nice. And the flashbang does like 10 damage. So if an opponent's really low and you know they're sitting in a corner, just toss a flash and get $1,200. I did that on what was it? Mansion? Is that the map?
Manor?
Manor. Yeah, Manor Mansion. And the last guy was sitting on the outside of A on T side. Like he walked up the stairs and everything, and I bounced a flash off the corner of like by obelisk or whatever. I bounced the corner off the off the wall or whatever and got the flashbang kill. And I was just like, oh.
It's always a nice surprise. It very rarely will I throw a flashbang intending to actually do damage to somebody. Most of the time, it's just using it for its utility function. But
absolutely,
it is neat when it works out like that.
Yeah.
But in terms of the knife, where are you putting it?
B or C?
I'm gonna say B. The kill bonus is great. On a save, you gotta check your corners.
So taser's just kind of a meme gun.
Yeah, total meme gun. You can't get it without like Archon or custom map. But what it does is if you hit somebody with it, there's like an electricity effect and they like drop everything. They're all the things on their chest, all the util, their gun in their hand, and they just like look at you like what is going on. So on community maps, or if you get an admin to spawn in it or whatever, you can just go around and tase people. I would love to see this added to the buy wheel for like $200 or something.
This would be a nice like alternate melee weapon, you know, and like, you know, the way it works in Counter-Strike is it depends on the distance that you are from the opponent. But if you're like basically point blank, you can get an insta kill with a taser. But like you have to be like point blank with it.
Yeah, I don't know about insta kill. There is a bit of range on it. The drop off is ridiculous, but having it at $200 so you could sit in a corner with a knife and a taser, I think that'd be hilarious.
That would be.
And I want the taser in Search and Destroy. I think it's fun.
Yeah.
Meta wise, I'm not sure how viable it would be versus like anything else, but it just adds a cool factor in VR when you can shoot somebody, they drop all their shit, and then you can just see them
Yeah.
like raise their arms up, like what the heck just happened.
Hmm. So I mean, sadly, I think it probably has to go F tier for right now, but since
I'm torn between F and S. But yeah, probably F. But it's
Yeah.
a fun thing. Fun factor
Yeah.
is high.
Yeah.
Viable and competitive is probably a bit low.
Yeah. So then we get to the World War II weapons.
Yeah, so the way I'm thinking about this is there is no World War II S&D game mode. It's not used really in competitive. None of these guns at the moment are in any sort of competitive environment. There are some cool push maps, there's some cool rush maps, community game mode. So that's kind of where my mind is going to judge these maps, on those larger maps where there's like multiple objective stages and you have a lot of long range engagements and there are tanks and a whole bunch of other stuff going on.
Yeah. So do we start with World War II pistols then?
Yeah, we can do that.
Because technically there's only 3, because the 1911 is also a World War II pistol, but we already talked about that because it's in the base game as well. So
yeah, so let's do the Weebly first. We'll kind of go backwards for these, I guess.
So okay, so the Webley or Weebly, I don't know how.
I just say it Weebly because it's funny, like Weeb, but I think it is Webley.
This is the one gun, by the way, that I will always misspell because I always think there's 2 E's, like Weebly, but it's actually Webley, like Webley. I don't know. This thing is effectively if the Revo and the Deagle had a baby. It does 40 damage. It has 100%, or actually does 45 damage. I think I tested it a couple times. It has 100% armor pen, and it's a 1 hit to helmet. It has 6 rounds in the magazine, and the thing that is beneficial about it, beside over the Revo, is that when you flick it open to empty the chamber, or the cylinder auto ejects all the bullets, so you don't have to like do any weird tilting and hope that the bullets come out like you're reloading the Revo. But since it's 6 shots, you have to put in 1 extra bullet and reload it like a Revo. But I mean, I think this thing is kind of like B, C, or C, D tier. I mean, like it's basically a Deagle and a Revo.
I agree with that. I'm going to say C tier because of the environment it's in. It's going up against a lot of semi-auto rifles, bolt-action rifles.
Yeah.
But having, like, compared to the other World War II pistols, I think that the sights are kind of iffy, but it still outclasses them.
Yeah. The other thing too is that so some World War II maps don't have player armor, and then some World War II maps do. So it also is very map specific. It's like, for example, on some of the bigger World War II push maps, like I know yours has armor, but the ones by like Marcus and Brav, they don't have armor. So all the SMGs and stuff, and even the pistols damage like crazy, versus where on your maps, because there's armor, they're not going to do as much damage. So it's
Yeah. The low poly maps, I remember there's armor, but I don't remember if I have helmets on for everyone.
there's no helmets.
Yeah.
So there's armor but no helmets. And then I think on the higher graphic maps there's no armor, but there's helmets.
And I think the default stuff, like if you open up Stalingrad on like Tank TDM or King of the Hill or whatever,
Yeah.
It is no armor. Like it's kind of true to the
Yeah.
World War II type of situation where there wasn't body armor, so that's just what you play with.
Yeah. So I think for now we can kind of think of these weapons as if they're going against helmets but no armor.
Yeah, I
I
agree with
I
that.
guess.
So
So then we get to the let's do the Tokarev.
I am not a fan. I think
Yeah.
it's a worse 1911.
Mhm.
The sights
Yeah.
are worse. It like bullet velocity, I think it's the same, and damage might even be the same. But I would prefer the 1911 over this.
The Tokarev actually does 20 damage. The bullet velocity is the same as the 1911, and it has one more bullet in the magazine. But yeah, the bullet damage is only 20, whereas the 1911 is 25. So it's the worst 1911.
Picking between that and the M9, I would have to think a little bit. I'm saying this is F tier.
Yeah, I wouldn't use it much. The Luger, on the other hand, might be like a C tier, and that's because it does 25 damage, which is nice. So the Tokarev, what's nice about it is that its helmet damage is 100, so it's a 2 tap to the head. The Luger is a 3 tap to the head because it only does 50 helmet damage, but the helmet pen is 75%. So effectively, you can turn this into a 2-hit kill based on the World War II modes because you hit the head once, which does 75 damage to a full health player, and then you hit him in the body for 25. So, uh, obviously, the annoying thing about the Luger and probably why the Germans hated the weapon and swapped to the Walther was because of the whatever mechanism on top.
Yeah, the recoil mechanism's odd. The like rear sight is blocked when it's in the process of ejecting. It's neat engineering, but shooting it can be quite distracting. But
Yeah.
because of what you said with the damage and stuff like that, I'm gonna put it up in B with the 1911.
Okay.
I
Yeah,
like it.
yeah, I mean it's a 4-hit kill to the body, so like if you're like in a desperate situation or like if you're using a sniper class arm, you can just whip it out and just 4 tap somebody. And even you can use this at like decent ranges too because it has an okay bullet velocity. Um so then I think we move on to the SMGs because that's all the
Sure.
pistols.
What do you want to start with?
Let's do the MP40.
All right. Classic German submachine gun.
This I have probably like a couple hours worth of footage of me just tapping people with this at very long ranges, and you can the bullet velocity, yeah, it's in line with the 9 mil pistols, but it's a 5-hit kill against unarmored opponents. And if this is against armor and a helmet, none of these SMGs would really be that good. Um, but against unarmored opponents, like the MP40 is kind of crazy actually. Um, I like in terms of World War II modes, I would put it at A tier because the sights are really easy to use and you could just tap people with it. And even because it shoots at like 545 rounds a minute, so the recoil is pretty manageable. And you can even like 2 burst or 3 you can like 3-round bursts or 4-round bursts with it at like medium ranges. So I'm thinking this is like an A tier weapon.
I that is not where I thought you were going to go with this. I am not a fan of the fire rate. I agree it's controllable, but at close and medium ranges where I traditionally think of SMGs belonging,
Yeah.
it gets outclassed. But you bring up an interesting point about extreme long ranges. If you're using this to tap fire or to shoot at very long ranges, if you can compensate for the bullet drop and the bullet velocity, it might be more viable. But then again, you're going up against bolt actions that are a 2-shot kill at very long ranges. That's like the traditional sniper,
Yeah.
and I'm leaning more towards C. Honestly, you're gonna have to sell me a bit more on A.
Okay, maybe if anything, if because we still have the other SMGs to go up again or to talk about, and there's one in particular that might be a little bit better, but maybe if anything, it's like B tier because of that rate of fire. Um,
The recoil is very controllable. It's flat shooting. You can stay on target, and in those World War II game modes, you're gonna turn around a corner and you're gonna see 7 guys in a tank,
yeah,
and you're just gonna have to
yeah,
like constantly be peeking and spamming that, trying to whittle them down. So I'll give it
hmm
B. I'm not sold on A, but I'll go
It's
compromise
a
with it on B.
it's a better medium range SMG for sure. And then we get to the Thompson, and the Thompson is definitely like C tier. It's just its iron sights are kind of wonky to use, and actually the Thompson in this game is like a weird hybrid of the Tommy gun and the Thompson made for the military, because it has the barrel and the charge handle are on, well, the charge handle is on top, which is suggestive of the Tommy gun, and then it even says Tommy gun on the side, but it functions more like a Thompson because it doesn't shoot at like 900 rounds a minute and doesn't have a drum mag and all that. So it's really weird. Um, but the thing about it is that its bullet velocity is really slow. And so it's definitely more of a close range submachine gun, but
Yeah, I
I
agree
mean,
with that. I kind of think of it very similar to the UMP
mhm,
in my mind. It is reminiscent of kind of that like early World War II where they're kind of like mixing and matching SMG components as they transition from like gangster Tommy gun to World War II Thompson.
mhm,
And I would choose the MP40 over it, I think, in most
yeah,
situations, especially since the vast majority of World War II combat's the medium and long ranges. Stalingrad, you get some fighting inside the houses, but a lot of
yeah,
that is building to building
mhm,
or down the road. You're going to have lots of longer range engagements where the Thompson does not shine very well.
yeah. So I'm thinking, what do you think? It's C or D?
I am in the same boat, C or D. I'd probably go D tier.
Yeah, because next up is the Sten, which I would love to use more, but most of the World War II maps don't. So there's no British player models, so a lot of map makers don't put in the British weapons, which kind of annoys me because I want to use like the Webley and the Lee Enfield, and I want to use all those weapons, partially whether it's for videos or whether it's for my own personal enjoyment. So the Sten is kind of like, it's probably C tier ish. So um it has a good fire rate of 722 rounds a minute. It's faster than Thompson. Um, and all the damage values are the same. S- I, the times I have used it, I've liked it. It's just obviously, you got that mag that goes out to the side because the British couldn't put a magazine on the bottom for whatever reason during this time period. Um, so that kind of blocks the field of view a little bit. And then the sights are okay-ish.
I actually like the magazine out to the side. In terms of reload speed and what feels natural in VR, I think
Yeah.
that quickly popping in the mag to the side and then grip to
Yeah.
quickly grab onto it, you can
Yeah.
be a lot faster on your reload compared to something like a Thompson.
Mm. And for sure. And I mean, just because it kind of shoots faster and it has like a better bullet velocity, I would think this is definitely like C tier.
I agree. I'd put it above a Thompson for
Yeah.
sure.
And then we have the best SMG of them all, the PPSH.
I really like this gun. It's a unique firearm in real life, and in Pavlov, it is just as cool.
So this used to have the 71 round drum mag, and because of that, I would have like put it S tier just against no armored players, because I mean it shoots at 909 rounds a minute, so it's the fastest firing SMG. So that means body shot wise, its time to kill against no armored players is 333 milliseconds, which is the fastest. It is the worst against armor though, because it only has an armor damage of 20, and so it's like 10 hits to kill against armor. Like it sucks against armor, and even against like for helmets it kind of sucks too, but against unarmored players this thing shreds, and the recoil literally peaks after 8 bullets, so all you have to do is just kind of go side to side based on where it goes, and so you can even beam people at like medium to long range with this too.
Totally agree. You can aim with the tracers. You don't even need to worry about the iron sights. I
Mhm.
would have put it at S, but because of the drum mag change, a lot of maps. It just switched over to the stick mag, and
Yeah.
it really helped balance it out. But still, I'd put this at a solid A.
Yeah, no, it's definitely better than the MP40, and it's easily the best of the World War II SMGs, and I can't wait to do a video on it.
Yeah, it's a really cool gun.
So then we get to what's next? What do you want to do next?
Let's do the STG. It's kind of like the first assault rifle, the STG
Yeah.
44.
So this weapon, it shoots at 600 rounds a minute, which is slightly slower than the LMGs. It takes 3 hits to knock the armor off, but has 100% armor pen. So it functions pretty much like an AK-12, but slightly better. Like it's not bad like the AK-12. And the recoil is pretty controllable, and the iron sights are pretty easy to use. Although I feel that you kind of have to line them up in a weird way. Like you kind of have to like tilt the barrel up just a little bit.
Yeah, the sights are kind of like the AK sights. Like they're both kind of thin sheet metal. You kind of have to take a little bit of time to learn it. I think that it absolutely is better than an AK-12. I'm kind of leaning around the C tier. It's
Yeah.
like the average standard issue was like assault rifle, even though it wasn't mass produced or something.
Yeah.
But it's like a classic World War II rifle.
Mhm.
Fits in right in the middle.
And if it weren't for this gun, we wouldn't have the AK-47. So thank
Yeah.
you, Germany, I guess.
Let's do the LMGs last. So
Okay.
let's do the bolt actions next.
Okay, so pretty much all the bolt actions are exactly the same.
I'm gonna disagree with you. There are some key differences that I want to point out.
Yeah, there's like this. There is a couple minor differences, but go ahead.
So for bolt actions, we have the Kar 98, we have the Enfield, we have the Mosin Nagant, and we have the Springfield. Visually speaking, in game, I have a hard time distinguishing right away between the Springfield and the Kar 98. The main identifiable feature for me is there's an indent right by the bolt on the Kar 98 in the stock. There's kind of like a little place for you to fit your hand around it and grab it. The
Yeah.
Kar 98's been in the game for a long time. These others are the part of the World War II update.
Yeah.
So, starting with the Springfield, this is bare bones bolt action rifle. You get what you get. It's a 2-shot kill. It has iron sights. It's like the most basic firearm. It's like a 5-round stripper clip. I'm saying D tier for this one.
So here's the thing. I kind of like the Springfield. The key difference between the Springfield and the Kar 98 is that the Kar 98 has a front fork sight, while the Springfield has like a ring sight at the front of it. And so I kind of like the Springfield. I would say it's more of like a C tier weapon because that ring sight is pretty easy to use. I mean, yet what you're supposed to do is kind of like half see the ring, but I kind of like aim it so that I see the full ring, and it's pretty easy to just put that on people. And I mean, it's easy to shoot. Again, like numbers statistic wise, all the bolt actions are mostly the same. They all have the same bullet velocity, all the same damage, all the effective fire rates are the same. And so I mean, I think the Springfield and the actual bolt action itself feels pretty intuitive. When we get to the Lee Enfield, I'll talk more about what that means, but I think it's more of like a C tier weapon. I will say though, on the maps that Brav has put in the IRL scopes, which if you use the sniper class on like World War II trenches, I think that's the only map. He put in the real life scopes, and so the real life scope for the Springfield, if you've ever seen one before, it basically is the length of the rifle, and it's kind of hard to use. Although the crosshair is just literally just a 2 lines, but it's so narrow. So I mean, maybe like C D tier, I can kind of get behind that. But I mean, that's kind of my thoughts on it, just from having used it a little bit.
Yeah, there are some modded maps like Brav that have added optics to it. What I was planning on differentiating between the Springfield and Car 98 was the Car 98 can accept a suppressor, it can accept a red dot, it can accept a
Mm,
holographic, an 8x. So on a lot of other maps, you'll see the Car 98 available for attachments. It's the only bolt action, like the World War II bolt actions, that currently accept scopes and stuff, unless you're going to like a heavily modded map like World War II trenches where they have like the old style scopes and things.
yeah. Hmm.
So I was in my mind gonna put the Springfield D in the Car 98C because the Car
Okay.
98 can accept attachments.
I mean, I do kind of like the Car 90 better, and even with the IRL scope, you can kind of look under it, and still use the irons. And so, I mean, I think the Car 98 is definitely a little bit better than the Springfield. So I can see if we were to do like a CD thing there.
All right, so we'll do that then.
All right, I gotta see which one's which, anyways, because they all look the same. I guess that's
Yeah.
the car. That's the car. That's the Springfield. All right.
So the Enfield is different in that it has a higher magazine capacity. It has
Yes.
10 rounds internally, so you can put 2 stripper clips in
Hmm.
compared to all the others, which are 5-shot. I
Yeah.
think that is an advantage, but not that big of an advantage.
Yeah, no, I mean, the iron sights of it are not the friendliest to use compared to the other rifles, and the bolt is the smallest, so you get a lot more of the bolt sticking open when you're trying to do it fast compared to the others. Like, it's really, I don't know. I haven't used it much, again, because not a lot of the World War II map makers have put in the British weapons, and so, I mean, I do love the fact that it's got 10 rounds as opposed to 5 rounds, but even then, if you were to accept the real life scope would be off to the side, like on the left. Um,
That would make it easier to use for cross-eye dominant people. Like if you're right-handed but left-eye dominant and it has that scope off to the side, you might prefer this over something else.
and then the other thing too is you could, like, if it was on the side, you could just swap between the sniper scope and the irons.
Yeah, that's a valid point. The the like stats wise, the extra 5 rounds for bolt actions, it takes time to rack the bolt, and putting in an extra clip during that process doesn't add that much time. So I'm probably going to end up putting it in the same category as the Springfield simply because it doesn't differentiate itself
Yeah.
that much from it.
Hmm. I'd agree with that. I mean, and then we get to the Mosin, which,
The Mosin. The one in Pavlov is like the sniper variant with the bent bolt. So you kind of have to
mhm,
grab it at a angle or at a position that's different than the others. Like the Car 98 and the Springfield, your muscle memory is going to be the same. You're like grabbing the bolt with the controller at the same place. With the Mosin, you have to not only grab it when you want to start racking the bolt at a like lower position, but when you go to close it, it's a slightly different like arc of movement with your
mhm.
hand. A lot of people, we're doing the Arctic 1v1 Mosin event right now, and a lot of people are trying to use their muscle memory from the Car 98 for the Mosin and discovering that it is not the same because of that different bolt placement.
Mhm. I will say I do like the sights of it, and I mean, at the end of the day, it is kind of just like a cheap Russian rifle that they mass produce because, the Russians were really good at mass producing stuff during wartime. But it would probably go like D tier with the Springfield and the Lee Enfield. Like, there's not like any benefit that the Mosin has. I think I
I
don't
agree
think
with
it's
that.
I don't think it's awful. Like, it's a fun rifle to use, and like, I sometimes use it like sniping on outskirts or whatever, and it's fun to use. And even the IRL scope, I'm pretty sure is like a chevron because the Russians love chevrons for whatever reason. So I mean,
Yeah, it would be nice to see World War II scopes and stuff make it into Pavlov as an official update instead of
mhm,
having like there's some like you mentioned Brav has a couple maps with the modded scopes, but having a whole bunch of World War II attachments like maybe a bayonet, that'd be cool. Storm a trench with
mm,
a bayonet. A
oh,
while
absolutely.
ago there was a World War One mod by it was Jet and I forget who else helped out on that, but it was very cool, atmospheric World War One trenches. There were like bombs going off, and it had a bayonet attachment that functioned very well. Basically, just a knife on the end of a stick, and you could just charge a trench.
That's actually dope. I would have loved to play that back in the day. But that's all the bolt actions. And then we have the semi-auto rifles. Yeah.
Yeah, so Russian SVD 40, I think is the name of this one. It's a 3-shot kill.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of gameplay, I personally prefer having the 3-shot semi-autos at long range versus the 2-shot bolt actions, because I miss occasionally, I know, weird, but and having those quicker follow-up shots make up for the lack in damage output. And especially if there's like 3 guys running across the hill, maybe you can get like 5 shots on like 6 people instead of like 4 shots on 3 people compared to a bolt action or something. And I feel
Mhm.
like I'm doing more damage at distance with the higher rate of fire.
Plus, all these semi-auto rifles are one hit to helmet.
Yes, that is a big factor. Getting that lucky long range distance shot is awesome.
Mhm. Yeah, and so all the semi-auto rifles is, as of right now, essentially function like auto snipers with iron sights. And so, I mean, but I mean, they're to me like they're better than the auto sniper. Obviously, the SVT 40, its iron sights I think are pretty clear to use. It's just like a ring at the front, and it's got back sights, kind of like the AK. They're like pre AK-47 sights, but
I like all of the iron sights on
yeah.
the semi-auto World War II
Mhm.
rifles. There's not a single one that I pick it up and I'm like, Jesus Christ, this is awful or something.
And the reload is pretty fast, and it's pretty intuitive how you do it. Just take the mag, put it back in. If you have to rack the charge handle, it's pretty clear where it is. So, um, I definitely say this is maybe like CB tier.
I'm gonna put the semi-auto rifles probably just in B tier above the bolt actions because of that distance engagement you often get with
Mhm.
the World War II theme. It's
Okay.
just simply better, in my opinion, than having the 2-shot bolt actions
Yeah.
versus the 3-shot
Yeah.
semi-auto.
Yeah. I love using like the Gewehr and the M1 Garand at just like in all the World War II and like your World War One map and all that. Like they're just so much fun to use. And to talk about the other two, the Gewehr, the Iron Saints are really, really nice. I mean, they're pretty much the same as like the STG or like if you like an actual Car 98K. Um, and I mean, it's one of my favorite rifles to use in World War II modes. And I
Can you
mean,
confirm that the damage and stats are all the same across the 3?
yeah, I did. I went through all of them, and like I like tested them in like lobbies myself, and I probably have footage somewhere that they're all the same. I mean, if you're wondering about like the M1 Garand, I think that's all. I'm pretty sure that's also a 3 hit.
Yeah, I'm pretty. I know they're all 3-hit, but I didn't know if like some of them had different armor values or something to differentiate
Yeah,
them between them. But they're all pretty similar. I like the ping of the Garand. That's a
yeah,
cool feature. Very like, it's just a cool gun to have that immersion
yeah.
type of
I
thing.
wish, I wish, I wish it was louder. But like the thing about the Garand that I like the most is that of the 3 semi-auto rifles, it reloads the fastest. Like you can reload that thing super quick.
That's true. It is the fastest reload because you just basically put the clip over the. I think it's like a volume near the bolt, and it just snaps into
Yeah.
place. I don't know. I think they're all 3 on par, though. I don't think that differentiates the Garand above them.
Yeah. I will say the Grand of the 3, the Grand has the hardest iron sights to use because they can be really like super tough.
Yes, totally agree with that. There is the ring rear sight, which you kind of have to get your
Yeah.
sights lined up to use it.
Either that or you just use the tracers. So, I mean, but
Yeah.
I love using the Grand. It's a boatload of fun. Um and then we get to but then
We're
we get
gonna do
to
the bar.
yeah, and I mean basically because of how, you know, the World War II maps are laid out, I think this thing is S tier.
I'm gonna agree with that, but only on the slow fire mode.
Yeah, so to kind of explain, so the bar has two fire modes. It has a regular automatic fire mode, which shoots at 652 rounds a minute, and then it has a slow fire mode, kind of like the real WoW, where it basically is shooting semi-auto, but you can hold the trigger. And from when I tested it, I don't think there's a game value for it. There might be, and I don't know. But when I tested it, it was about 335 rounds a minute. And so it of the 4 LMGs, it technically does have the slowest time to kill, but on 2 of the LMGs, it's really not that much of a difference. It does have the lowest magazine capacity, but at super long ranges, this thing might as well be better than using a semi-automatic rifle.
I totally agree. And another thing that you can do with it is if you have one in each hand on the slow fire mode, having that akimbo is actually viable in some situations.
You know, you told me that, and I haven't tried it that much yet, but I still have to try that because, like, I was, like, testing just, like, the one-hand accuracy. I'm like, this isn't really that bad." So but this thing beams at long range, and they recently updated the iron sights. In fact, literally the night after I made a video about the bar, they updated the front iron sight. So it used to be like squared off. It was still a ring and it was like a squared off or whatever. And then they made it into a fork. So they essentially made the iron sights even better, in my opinion.
Yeah, I totally agree. S tier, great gun to use. I like it a lot. It's probably my second favorite World War II gun to use. We'll get to my favorite last,
Yeah.
probably.
hmm So then we're gonna move on to the Bren. I think of the 4 LMGs, the Bren is the worst. And it has a special place in my heart. I just kind of like the weapon, but I mean, you have to get used to the fact that, oh hey, the iron sights are on the left side of the gun, and oh hey, there's a magazine in your face again because the British can't put the magazine on the
Yeah, they
bottom.
just can't figure it out, I guess. But it's
Uh,
interesting if you're like left-handed and grab it from the wrong side, it'll actually switch the handle. So if you're
yeah.
left-handed, you're not totally screwed. You're mostly screwed just in life, but in Pavlov, you're all right. But I agree with it being the worst LMG of the World War II
Mhm.
update.
Stats wise, besides magazine capacity, it is identical to the DP27, which we'll get to next. But I mean, it has a 30 round mag. The iron sights are kind of hard to line up initially because, again, they're on the side. So, I mean, if anything, this is probably going to be like a C or B tier.
I agree with C. I think it's pretty comparable to the STG in
hmm
terms of gameplay and how it's used. I'm happy with it there.
hmm Cool. And then we get to the frisbee gun, or the record player, as the Russians called it, the DP28. Or I think it's actually. So I was looking up facts because this is actually going to be my next video. The DP27. It's actually the DP27 in Russia, but for whatever in the West they decide to call it the DP28. It's, I don't know, but this gun actually is pretty solid. I would say it's probably a tier because yeah, it's statistically identical to the Bren, but it's easier to use. It has a 47 round magazine that's really fast to reload. It's, the big frisbee mag on top. You just toss it off and then put another one on top. And then the only thing is the charging handle is kind of hidden. You have to look for it. It's on the
But
right
it's a
side.
big charging handle. It's not like some tiny little thing you have to go hunting for. It's pretty obvious where it is once you take the
Yeah.
mag off.
Yeah. But I mean, again, 47 rounds, and then it's a 5 hit kill, shoots at 666 rounds a minute, which is the same as the Bren, which is actually faster than it shoots in real life. It only shoots like 500 or 550 rounds per minute in real life. And it shoots a Mosin cartridge, like the 7.62 by 54 mmR. But this thing, like, you can just burst people at long range, and it essentially has AK-47 sights, and
The sights
I
do take a bit to get used to, but once you get used to it, it is viable.
mhm. So I would say this is probably A or B tier.
I'm all right with A. I think I would prefer this over the Garand or semi-autos at medium and short range. At very long range, I'd still prefer the 3 shots, but I'm comfortable with this at a solid
Yeah.
A. I like
I
it.
get Yeah, the thing that makes it pretty all right is that it's got a 47 round mag,
That's
which is
huge.
that's the biggest of all the World War.
And especially if some maps implement limited ammo, so you're gonna want that extra capacity as well.
Mhm. For sure. But then we get to arguably the best World War II gun, in my opinion.
Arguably, I think it's hands down the best. Easy S tier. Finish it off strong. MG42.
So for facts for anybody watching this, this does 20 damage just like all the other LMGs, and armor damage is 60, armor pen is 100%, helmet damage is 100, but helmet pen is 75. So it's a 2 taps to the head, but it has a 50 round belt fed magazine. So I mean, obviously you have to figure out the reload, but you can kind of do that at a decent speed. And I like before they fixed the LMG, I liked how they did the and I liked how they did the reload with this. It was definitely a little bit easier. It shoots at 1200 rounds a minute, so as fast as a P90, meaning that against armor, it's the fastest killing LMG. It kills in a quarter of a second, whereas the other two, the Brennan and the DP28, they kill in 450 milliseconds, and then the bar is 500. Um, and I mean, it has the same bullet velocity. This thing just shreds. If you're caught up close against somebody and you don't get like the first 2 shots, you'll probably die to one of these things.
Absolutely. The rate of fire just makes it an absolute killer. The magazine capacity is great. Even though you burn through it fairly quickly, I often find myself doing like a half-second burst, and then I know I have to reload because my drum is half empty. But the iron sights leave some things to be desired, but they're usable. The overall, in terms of where it fits in, it is viable close, it's viable medium. Long range, it struggles a bit because the rate of fire is so high. You can't really tap it. It's like you're doing
You go
3
to
or 2 shot bursts.
Yeah, you go to tap it and like 4 bullets come out and you're just like, oh crap. And so like the thing is like, yeah, you have to learn sort of the recoil and how to control it because it will just kick up on you. Um, but we talked about it with the LMG, but this does get a accuracy boost when you crouch, and it's a really good accuracy boost. I, I'm sure you saw my video on it, but I compared the two, and there's like when it like Hort goes vertical for 20 rounds and then kind of goes side to side for the rest of it, and there's like a lot of horizontal recoil. When you crouch, it's basically like a straight line with a little wiggle going up. It's that crazy. So if you're just like holding a position and you crouch with this weapon, you can pull off like those 5-6 round bursts at long range and still be pretty accurate.
I agree with that. Another thing to take into consideration, though, is that when you're crouching, reloading this is a pain in the ass in VR. You're definitely going to want to probably do that like armpit trick where if you're crouched down low, you can reach into your armpit with the controller to grab a magazine instead of trying to go for your belt. And that makes crouching and reloading a bit easier, but even then you're still dealing with it. It's an LMG. You're gonna have to lift the top up. You're gonna have to put the drum on the side and charge it and all that. It's a slow to reload gun, but it more than makes up for that in the sheer power that it spits out.
Yeah, and I mean, usually, overpowered isn't really like a good thing, but I mean, it's the MG42. It was literally an overpowered gun IRL. Like, this thing changed the game for machine guns around the world.
One thing that might be worth implementing is the same sort of barrel overheat that the M249 sees in Pavlov. Some sort of punishment for just crushing out that rate of fire. Like some sort of barrel overheat mechanism or something like that might be worth implementing, but it clearly stands above the rest of the LMGs.
What my thought was kind of, knowing a little bit about like firearms and stuff, was what if you made the MG42 like a mounted only weapon, and so there was like points around the map where there's an MG42 that you can use, and then you put in the FG42, the
That's an interesting concept. I like that a lot. That's another classic gun that is currently not in the game.
So the FG-42 or Fallschirmjägergewehr is the German paratrooper rifle, and so it shoots the same cartridge, so it probably do the same damage in game. It shoots it only at like 900 or 1,000 rounds. It's a little bit slower.
Only.
Yeah, I
That's
know.
still really
it's
fast, my
it's
dude.
it's still like the Germans, if anything, they had like ridiculous weapons during World War II. It was ridiculous. But the other thing is that it had a 20 round magazine and that was it. But like you could put, I'm pretty sure you were able to put like telescopic sights or they experimented with that or whatever. But I think in terms of LMG balance, I think that would be a little bit better because it would be a faster firing LMG and it would probably have a higher or slower time or faster time to kill, excuse me. But you only have 20 rounds in a magazine. So but the MG42 right now easily stands as probably the best World War II gun, and going up against one of those is hard as hell.
Absolutely. Another route. I like your idea with the FG-42 and having it as the MG-42 as the mounted gun. Another alternative might be to implement a bipod mechanic. Some other VR games like Onward have bipod mechanics where you actually set the gun down on the ground and the bipod like holds it up and helps with recoil and things like that. So if you bumped up the recoil on all the LMGs quite a bit, except for bipod use, you might see more balanced gameplay with something as crazy as the MG42.
Yeah. Because I mean, it does get affected by movement speed for sure. Like aiming down sights, it's the same as the LMG. You move really, really slow, but still, like the thing just shreds. Like there's no other gun that stands up to it except for maybe like the PPSH, and that's only against unarmored opponents. It's clearly like a really powerful weapon of the like, I mean it's the best World War II weapon, hands down. There's it's ridiculous.
Yeah. So here's our list. What do you think? Overall, you think we got it right?
I I'm thinking so. I mean, I'm excited to see how the beta weapons come into play and what further balancing changes they do with a lot of these. I know their priority right now is actually going to be closer to modern weapons. So, all these beta weapons that we were talking about, they'll probably get implemented sometime and we'll see sort of how they factor into search and destroy stuff. If they do implement World War II S&D stuff, that probably means I'm going to have to do a World War II video on how to play the economy in that. And it'll be interesting to see how the weapons pan out in with an economy in play.
Yeah, faction weapons will be interesting as well when you split up the CT&Ts in terms of what they have available. Modern wars, you do come across like STG 44s in Afghanistan, so it wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility that when faction weapons are implemented, maybe you see the MP40 and the STG on T side.
Yeah.
Something like that, where it's not like a standalone World War II S&D game mode, but some of the guns get implemented into the faction weapons.
For sure. I mean, like, I'm pretty sure there's been like some use of the PBSH elsewhere besides Russia post World War II. As far as I remember, if I even recall correctly. And what other weapons you can pull in from there. But I mean, it's doing this is it's definitely like the modern weapons. Yeah, we balance them also based on economy, and so we didn't have that as much with the World War II weapons, and most of the World War II weapons are based on like unarmored opponents, but with helmet. So it's kind of weird how the two balance out. But I mean, the thing about like the LMGs, for example, is that they basically function like the World War II assault rifles, just like with their armor pen and everything. So I mean, it's interesting to see how this all sort of like balances out. And I think we have like a pretty even spread across the board and like it follows a pretty decent bell curve. Like there's not a lot of weapons that are overpowered or on S tier, but like or even A tier, but the few that are there, like, they define the meta. And then the B and the C tier weapons are just kind of like weapons you can get away with using, but aren't like the best or anything special. And then, you know, the D tier weapons are weapons that are kind of rarely used, and then the F tier weapons are weapons that,
I think the F tier weapons probably get used more than the D tier because people meme with them.
yeah. I mean, but I think the F tier weapons are the weapons that need some sort of like well, I just turned 13 for a sec. They need some sort of rework, to like make them either more viable or like at least competitive with other weapons.
I agree with that. I'm looking at the F tier, and they are truly F tier. They need some sort of balance to get them in line with like D tier, C tier at least. Because it's sad that there's this time and effort put into adding these guns to the game, and then nobody ever uses them,
Yeah.
or
And I
nobody
mean,
should use them.
yeah. And I mean, like, some weapons do wind up being a piece of crap. Like the Tokarev isn't really that great of a pistol, or even like, I'm sure there's so many of those World War II weapons. Like, there's a reason that a lot of them were retired after World War II.
That's valid.
Yeah. But I mean, like, stuff like, the Car 98, like, that sometimes gets some use today. It really depends. So, I mean, hopefully, I'm sure this list will probably change as time goes on, and we'll probably have to do another one of these. But I mean, this is fun
Yeah,
going through
this
everything.
was fun. Yeah, I enjoyed this a lot. So where can people find your stuff? You've been doing some interesting deep dives on your YouTube channel.
Yeah. So you can find my channel at youtube.com/yellow hat, or just look up Yellow Hat. There's a couple Yellow Hats in the community. One of them, or on the YouTube world, one of them is actually a Magic the Gathering player and has way more subs than I do. But that's not me. I don't play Magic the Gathering. But I kind of did like a channel restart in a way. So I used to do you. I've like had my YouTube channel since like 2010, and I had like a let's play of like a PS2 game that I was doing for a while, and then I just kind of stopped uploading. And then since my focus has been a lot on like VR and specifically Pavlov, I've kind of shifted all my content towards that. So I try to upload once or twice a week, usually like Mondays, Fridays, or sometimes Wednesdays. I'm trying to develop more of a schedule, but you can find me there. Um, I have a Twitter that I'm going to start using more, Yellow Hat HD. And then I also have a Twitch, Yellow Hat 07. And then I also have a Discord, which I'm going to start like trying to build myself. And so usually I put that in the link of my videos or whatever. But if you ever want an invite for that, just send me a PM over here and I will get you in that. But that's pretty much where you can find me. So a lot of my stuff right now is going to be informational content. There's a couple things I'm gonna do. I got asked to do some World War II push content, which is why I've been playing a lot more World War II recently. So there'll be some of that, and then I'm gonna start, you know, delving into a lot of what we were talking about today, like doing in-depth guides on all the modern weapons and seeing how they play out and where they stand in the meta. And so that's going to be for both like the competitive people and the people that are getting into the game just like for fun. And so yeah, I mean, that's pretty much where you can find me and what you can sort of expect to see. And you might see some variety stuff in there too, depending on what I feel like playing. So, yeah.
All right. Well, that was fun. Thanks for hopping on a call.
Yeah, for sure. I'm glad you asked me. This was a lot of fun.